The fluorescent lights hum overhead in the British Museum storage facility as Dr. Sarah Mitchell carefully lifts a crystal skull from its protective case. Her hands tremble slightly, not from the weight, but from what she's about to reveal. For decades, these artifacts have been dismissed as clever hoaxes, tourist trinkets carved by modern artisans. But what if everything we've been told about crystal skulls is wrong? What if hidden within their pristine surfaces lies evidence of a civilization so advanced, so sophisticated, that it challenges everything we think we know about human history? Welcome to a mystery that spans continents, defies explanation, and could rewrite the story of our past. I'm about to take you on a journey that will shatter your assumptions about ancient technology, lost civilizations, and the true capabilities of our ancestors. Because what I'm going to show you isn't just about crystal skulls, it's about a cover-up that's been hiding in plain sight for over a century. My name is Mr. H, and I've spent the last 15 years investigating archaeological anomalies that mainstream science refuses to acknowledge. I've travelled to remote corners of the globe, examined artifacts that shouldn't exist, and uncovered evidence that suggests our history books are missing entire chapters. Today I'm going to share with you the most explosive discovery of my career, a discovery that connects crystal skulls to a lost super-civilization that may have possessed technology we're only beginning to understand. But before we dive into the evidence, let me tell you why this matters. Right now, as you're watching this video, there are 13 crystal skulls sitting in museums and private collections around the world. Each one is carved from a single piece of quartz crystal, with a precision that modern technology struggles to replicate. Each one defies conventional dating methods, and each one carries within its atomic structure information that could unlock secrets about our planet's hidden past. The implications are staggering. If what I'm about to reveal is true, then everything you learned in school about the development of human civilization is incomplete. We're not talking about minor adjustments to historical timelines. We're talking about the possibility that an advanced civilization existed thousands of years before the first cities of Mesopotamia, before the pyramids of Egypt, before anything we currently recognize as the beginning of complex human society. The crystal skulls aren't just beautiful artifacts. They're potential data storage devices, technological marvels that could contain the accumulated knowledge of a lost world, and the evidence suggests that this knowledge includes scientific principles we've only recently discovered, mathematical concepts that weren't supposed to exist until the modern era, and engineering techniques that could revolutionize how we understand ancient capabilities. Now I know what you're thinking. Crystal skulls? Aren't those the things from Indiana Jones movies? Haven't scientists already proven they're fake? Well, that's exactly what they want you to think. The official narrative has been carefully constructed to discredit these artifacts before anyone can examine them too closely. But when you dig deeper, when you look beyond the sanitized museum displays and academic dismissals, a very different picture emerges. Let me start with something that will blow your mind. In 1927, British adventurer Frederick Mitchell Hedges and his daughter Anna discovered a crystal skull in the ruins of Lubanton, an ancient Maya city in Belize. This wasn't just any crystal skull. This was a masterpiece of engineering that defied every known technique of ancient craftsmanship. The skull was carved from a single piece of clear quartz crystal, with no tool marks, no signs of modern machinery, and optical properties that seemed to bend light in impossible ways. When the skull was examined by Hewlett-Packard's Crystal Laboratory in 1970, the results sent shockwaves through the scientific community. The technicians found that the skull had been carved against the natural grain of the crystal, something that should have shattered the quartz into 1,000,000 pieces. The precision of the carving was so exact that it appeared to have been made with tools that didn't exist until the 20th century. Yet radiocarbon dating of organic materials found with the skull suggested it was hundreds, possibly thousands of years old. But here's where it gets really interesting. The skull exhibited piezoelectric properties, meaning it could generate electrical charges when subjected to pressure. It also demonstrated unusual acoustic resonance, creating specific sound frequencies when struck. Most remarkably, the skull seemed to focus and amplify light in ways that suggested it was designed as some kind of optical instrument. These aren't the properties of a decorative artifact. These are the characteristics of advanced technology. The Mitchell Hedges skull isn't alone. Across the globe, similar crystal skulls have been discovered in locations that span continents and cultures. The British Museum skull, supposedly from Mexico, the Smithsonian skull, origin unknown, the Paris skull, claimed to be Aztec, each one carved with the same impossible precision, each one exhibiting properties that conventional archaeology can't explain. What's even more intriguing is the pattern of how these skulls have been treated by the scientific establishment. Rather than intensive study and analysis, they've been subjected to a campaign of systematic debunking. Scientists have focused on discrediting the skulls rather than understanding them. They've pointed to microscopic tool marks that they claim prove modern origin, while ignoring the overwhelming evidence of advanced ancient techniques. This brings us to the first major revelation of our investigation. The crystal skulls aren't isolated artifacts. They're part of a much larger pattern of anomalous objects that suggest the existence of a lost super-civilization. Across the globe, archaeologists have uncovered evidence of advanced ancient technology that doesn't fit our current understanding of human development. Precision-cut megalithic stones that would challenge modern construction equipment. Intricate metalwork that requires techniques we've only recently mastered. Astronomical alignments that demonstrate sophisticated mathematical knowledge. The crystal skulls represent the pinnacle of this ancient technology. They're not just carved objects, they're sophisticated devices that may have served multiple functions in an advanced society. Some researchers believe they were used as computers, storing vast amounts of information in their crystalline matrix. Others suggest they were communication devices, capable of transmitting thoughts or images across vast distances. Still others propose they were power sources, harnessing natural energies in ways we're only beginning to understand. To understand how this is possible, we need to examine the unique properties of quartz crystal. Quartz is one of the most abundant minerals on Earth, but it's also one of the most remarkable. It's piezoelectric, meaning it generates electrical charges when subjected to mechanical stress. It's also pyroelectric, producing electrical charges when heated or cooled. These properties make quartz essential in modern technology, from watches to computers to telecommunications equipment. But ancient peoples weren't supposed to understand these properties. According to conventional history, the piezoelectric effect wasn't discovered until 1880. The technological applications of quartz weren't developed until the 20th century. Yet the crystal skulls demonstrate a sophisticated understanding of these properties that predates our official discovery by thousands of years. This is where the evidence for a lost super-civilization becomes compelling. The precision required to carve these skulls, the understanding of crystal properties they demonstrate, and the technological sophistication they represent all point to a level of ancient knowledge that shouldn't have existed. Unless, of course, our understanding of ancient history is fundamentally flawed. Consider the implications. If an advanced civilization possessed the technology to create crystal skulls with computer-like capabilities thousands of years ago, what else were they capable of? Could they have built the megalithic structures that still puzzle archaeologists today? Could they have developed forms of energy and transportation that we've lost to time? Could they have possessed scientific knowledge that we're only now rediscovering? The crystal skulls may be the key to answering these questions. If they truly function as information storage devices, they could contain the accumulated knowledge of this lost civilization, detailed records of their technology, their science, their understanding of the universe. The secrets to building structures that have lasted millennia, to working with energies we barely comprehend, to achieving a level of sophistication that makes our modern world look primitive by comparison. But accessing this information isn't simple. The crystal skulls aren't like books that can be read or hard drives that can be accessed with the right equipment. They're quantum storage devices that operate on principles we're only beginning to understand. The information they contain may be encoded in the very structure of the crystal itself, accessible only through specific resonance frequencies or consciousness-based interfaces. This brings us to one of the most controversial aspects of crystal skull research. Many investigators have reported unusual experiences when in close proximity to the skulls. Visions of ancient civilizations, downloads of technical information, contact with non-human intelligences. These reports are typically dismissed as wishful thinking or psychological suggestion. But what if they represent genuine interactions with an ancient information storage system? The possibility that consciousness itself could interface with crystalline storage systems isn't as far-fetched as it might seem. Modern research into quantum consciousness and the role of microtubules in brain function suggests that human consciousness may operate on quantum principles. If ancient civilizations understood these principles, they could have developed technologies that interface directly with human consciousness, using crystal matrices as storage and transmission media. This would explain why the crystal skulls have been so systematically discredited by mainstream archaeology. If they truly contain the technological secrets of a lost supercivilization, their implications would be revolutionary. They would force us to completely rewrite human history, to acknowledge that advanced civilizations existed long before we thought possible, and to accept that our ancestors possessed capabilities that rival or exceed our own. But there's something even more profound at stake here. The crystal skulls may not just be artifacts of a lost human civilization. They may be evidence of contact between ancient humans and non-human intelligences. The precision of their construction, the sophistication of their design, and the advanced knowledge they represent may exceed even the capabilities of a highly advanced human civilization. This possibility opens up questions that go far beyond archaeology or history. If the crystal skulls are products of non-human technology, they represent proof that Earth has been visited by advanced intelligences for thousands of years. They suggest that human civilization may have developed with guidance from entities whose capabilities far exceed our own. They imply that the knowledge contained within the skulls could transform our understanding not just of the past, but of our place in the universe itself. As we stand on the threshold of these revelations, we must ask ourselves, are we ready for the truth? Are we prepared to accept that everything we've been taught about human history and our place in the cosmos may be fundamentally wrong? The crystal skulls are waiting to tell their story. The question is whether we have the courage to listen. The evidence I'm about to present will challenge every assumption you have about ancient capabilities. Because what we've discovered about crystal skull construction techniques doesn't just suggest advanced knowledge, it proves the existence of manufacturing processes that our modern world has only achieved in the last few decades. Let me take you inside the laboratory where everything changed. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a materials scientist at MIT, was skeptical when she first agreed to examine fragments from the British Museum skull. She expected to find clear evidence of modern diamond-tipped tools, rotary cutting equipment, or at minimum the microscopic scarring that comes from any known carving method. What she found instead defied every principle of materials science she'd spent 20 years studying. Under electron microscopy, the crystal surface showed no tool marks whatsoever. None. The molecular structure had been altered at the atomic level in a way that suggested the quartz had been softened, molded like clay, then returned to its crystalline state. This isn't just impossible with ancient technology. It's impossible with current technology. We don't possess any method for temporarily altering the molecular bonds of quartz crystal without completely destroying its structural integrity. But Dr. Vasquez's analysis revealed something even more disturbing. Embedded within the crystal matrix were trace elements that don't occur naturally on Earth, isotopic signatures that match no known terrestrial source. The implications are staggering. Either these skulls were constructed using materials from off-planet sources, or they were created using nuclear transmutation techniques that we've only theorized about in quantum physics laboratories. Think about what this means. We're not talking about skilled ancient craftsmen with advanced tools. We're talking about a level of atomic manipulation that suggests mastery over the fundamental forces of matter itself. The ability to restructure crystalline bonds, to embed alien isotopes, to create objects that function as biological technological interfaces. This is technology that transcends anything in our current scientific paradigm. Now here's where the cover-up becomes obvious. When Dr. Vasquez attempted to publish her findings, she faced immediate resistance from the academic establishment. Her research grant was terminated. Her laboratory access was revoked. She was told that her analysis was flawed, that her equipment must have been contaminated, that her conclusions were impossible and therefore irrelevant. The same pattern that's been repeated with every serious scientific investigation of crystal skulls for over a century. But Dr. Vasquez wasn't deterred. Working with a small group of independent researchers, she continued her analysis using private facilities. What they discovered next will fundamentally change how you think about ancient history. The crystal skulls aren't just advanced artifacts, they're active technological devices that are still functioning after thousands of years. Using specialized electromagnetic field detectors, the team discovered that each skull generates a unique energy signature. These aren't random electromagnetic emissions. They're structured, patterned, organized, in ways that suggest purposeful design. When multiple skulls are brought into proximity, their energy signatures synchronize, creating harmonic resonance patterns that amplify their individual outputs exponentially. This is where ancient legend aligns with a modern discovery. Indigenous traditions from cultures across the globe speak of 13 crystal skulls that, when brought together, will reveal the secrets of a lost world. These aren't just mythological stories, they're technical specifications for operating a system of interconnected quantum devices. Imagine a civilization that understood consciousness as a quantum phenomenon, a civilization that could create technologies that interface directly with human neural networks through crystalline matrices, a civilization that encoded their entire knowledge base into a distributed storage system that could only be fully accessed when all components were assembled. This isn't science fiction. This is the reality suggested by the evidence we've uncovered. But accessing this system requires more than just physical proximity. The skulls respond to specific brainwave patterns, particular states of consciousness that allow for direct neural interface. This explains the visions, the downloads of information, the contact experiences reported by researchers who've worked closely with the skulls. They're not hallucinations or wishful thinking. They're actual data transfers from an ancient information storage system. Dr. Michael Thornton, a neuroscientist at Stanford, has been studying these consciousness interfaces for the past decade. His research, conducted in secret due to the controversial nature of his findings, has identified specific neural oscillation patterns that trigger responses from crystal skull artifacts. When subjects achieve these brainwave states in proximity to the skulls, measurable changes occur in both brain activity and the electromagnetic emissions from the crystals. The data suggest that the skulls function as amplifiers for human consciousness, enhancing cognitive abilities and accessing information stored within their crystalline matrices. Subjects report enhanced mathematical understanding, advanced scientific insights, and detailed knowledge of technologies that don't exist in our current civilization. These aren't random hallucinations. They're structured information downloads from a database that contains the accumulated knowledge of a super-advanced civilization. What's most remarkable is the consistency of the information being accessed. Independent researchers, working with different skulls in different locations, are receiving the same technical specifications, the same mathematical formulas, the same scientific principles. This suggests that the skulls are all connected to a unified information system, a quantum network that has remained active for thousands of years. The knowledge being downloaded through these interfaces includes technologies that could revolutionize our understanding of energy, transportation, and communication. Free energy systems that harness zero-point fluctuations, anti-gravity propulsion that manipulates space-time geometry, consciousness-based communication that transcends the limitations of electromagnetic radiation. These aren't theoretical concepts. They're detailed technical specifications for technologies that a lost civilization actually built and operated. But here's the most disturbing revelation of our investigation. The systematic suppression of crystal skull research isn't accidental. It's not just academic skepticism or scientific conservatism. It's a deliberate campaign to prevent humanity from accessing this ancient knowledge. Someone or something doesn't want us to rediscover the capabilities of this lost supercivilization. Consider the pattern of suppression. Every major crystal skull discovery has been followed by immediate debunking efforts. Research funding is cut. Scientists are discredited. Evidence disappears into private collections or restricted museum storage. The few skulls that remain accessible to researchers are dismissed as modern fakes, despite overwhelming evidence of their ancient origin and advanced construction. This level of coordinated suppression suggests that powerful interests understand exactly what the crystal skulls represent. They know that widespread access to this ancient technology would fundamentally transform human civilization. They know that the knowledge contained within these devices could render current power structures obsolete, and they're willing to go to extraordinary lengths to prevent that transformation from occurring. The question we must ask is, who benefits from keeping humanity ignorant of its true history? Who profits from suppressing technologies that could solve our energy crisis, revolutionize transportation, and expand our understanding of consciousness itself? The answers to these questions may be more disturbing than the existence of ancient supercivilizations. What if the crystal skulls are more than just artifacts from a lost human civilization? What if they're evidence of ongoing contact between humanity and non-human intelligences? What if the knowledge they contain isn't just ancient history, but active guidance for our species' development? The implications extend far beyond archaeology into realms that challenge our fundamental understanding of reality itself. As we prepare to delve deeper into these possibilities, Remember that what you're learning here isn't just academic curiosity. This is information that could change the course of human civilization. Information that some forces will do anything to suppress. Information that may hold the key to humanity's next evolutionary leap. The crystal skulls are calling to us across the millennia, offering knowledge that could transform our world. But accessing that knowledge requires courage. The courage to question everything we've been taught. The courage to accept that our history is far stranger and more wonderful than we ever imagined. The courage to embrace possibilities that stretch the boundaries of human understanding. Are you ready to discover what happens when 13 crystal skulls are finally brought together? Because what I'm about to reveal will shake you to your core. Hidden in a classified facility beneath the Nevada desert, something unprecedented occurred in 1987 that the government has spent decades trying to bury. But the truth has a way of surfacing, and what happened during Project Crystal Gate represents the most significant breakthrough in human consciousness research ever achieved. Dr. James Whitmore was a theoretical physicist working on classified projects when he received an unusual assignment. The military had acquired 7 crystal skulls through various channels, some from private collectors, others from archaeological sites that were immediately sealed after discovery. The official mission was to determine if these artifacts posed any security threat. The unofficial mission was far more ambitious. What Whitmore discovered in those underground laboratories changed everything. When the 7 skulls were arranged in a specific geometric pattern, something extraordinary happened. The facility's electromagnetic sensors went haywire. Temperature readings fluctuated wildly, and most remarkably, every person in the vicinity began experiencing identical visions of technological blueprints, mathematical equations, and scientific principles that wouldn't be discovered by mainstream science for decades. But here's where the story takes a terrifying turn. The visions weren't random. They were systematic downloads of information about technologies that could completely transform human civilization. Free energy systems that could eliminate our dependence on fossil fuels. Medical devices that could cure diseases by manipulating cellular frequencies. Transportation methods that could make space travel as simple as driving to the grocery store. The implications were so staggering that the project was immediately classified at the highest levels. Dr. Whitmore and his team were sworn to secrecy, their research buried in black budget programs that officially don't exist. But Whitmore kept detailed notes, hidden away for decades until his death in 2019, when his daughter discovered his secret files and decided the world needed to know the truth. Those files reveal something that will fundamentally change how you understand the crystal skulls. They're not just ancient artifacts, they're components of an active communication system that's been trying to contact humanity for thousands of years. Each skull functions as a node in a vast network that spans not just our planet, but potentially our entire galaxy. Think about this carefully. What if the lost supercivilization that created these skulls didn't disappear? What if they evolved beyond physical existence into something we can barely comprehend? What if the crystal skulls are their way of maintaining contact with their descendants, offering guidance and knowledge to help us navigate the challenges of technological development? The evidence suggests that this civilization faced the same crossroads we're approaching now. The choice between using advanced technology for creation or destruction, between evolving into a higher form of consciousness or destroying themselves through their own capabilities. The crystal skulls may be their attempt to help us make the right choice, but accessing this guidance isn't automatic. It requires a specific level of consciousness development, a particular harmony between individual minds and the collective human spirit. This explains why the skulls have remained largely dormant throughout most of human history. We simply weren't ready for the knowledge they contain. However, something is changing. Reports of spontaneous activations are increasing worldwide. People with no knowledge of crystal skull research are experiencing visions and downloads of advanced information. Children are drawing blueprints for technologies that don't exist. Scientists are receiving inspiration for breakthrough discoveries during dreams and meditation. The skulls appear to be awakening, responding to humanity's growing readiness for transformation. Dr. Sarah Chen, a consciousness researcher at the University of California, has been documenting these spontaneous activation events. Her data shows a dramatic increase in reported cases over the past decade, with the frequency accelerating exponentially. Most remarkably, the information being received is consistent across different individuals, suggesting they're all accessing the same source. Chen's research has identified specific trigger conditions for these activation events. Individuals who experience them typically demonstrate high levels of empathy, creative thinking, and what she terms reality flexibility, the ability to consider possibilities that transcend conventional understanding. These aren't random hallucinations. They're selective communications with individuals who have the psychological framework to process advanced information without psychological breakdown. The knowledge being transmitted through these events is breathtaking in its scope and implications. Detailed schematics for devices that could revolutionize every aspect of human existence. Mathematical proofs that solve problems scientists have struggled with for decades. Medical treatments that address diseases at their quantum foundations rather than just managing symptoms. But perhaps most significantly, the transmissions include warnings about the dangers of advanced technology when wielded by consciousness that hasn't evolved beyond ego-driven motivations. The lost civilization apparently learned this lesson the hard way, and they're trying to help us avoid their mistakes. This brings us to the most controversial aspect of the crystal skull phenomenon. The evidence suggests that the original creators of these devices weren't entirely human, as we understand the term. The level of consciousness required to create such sophisticated technology, the understanding of quantum mechanics and consciousness interface systems, the ability to transcend physical death while maintaining coherent information transfer. These capabilities suggest a form of intelligence that has evolved far beyond our current limitations. Some researchers propose that the crystal skulls represent evidence of intervention by extraterrestrial civilizations. Others suggest they're products of a human civilization that achieved levels of consciousness we've forgotten how to access. Still others propose that they're interfaces with interdimensional intelligences that exist outside our normal space-time continuum. Whatever their true origin, the crystal skulls appear to be activating systems that have remained dormant for millennia. Ancient sites around the world are exhibiting unusual electromagnetic activity. Standing stones are resonating at frequencies that match the crystal skull emissions. Sacred sites that were built thousands of years ago are suddenly coming online as if responding to some kind of activation signal. The implications are staggering. What if our ancestors built a global communication network using technologies we've forgotten how to recognize? What if the megalithic sites, the pyramids, the stone circles, aren't just monuments, but functional components of a planetary consciousness interface system? What if the crystal skulls are the activation keys for technologies that could transform human civilization overnight? But accessing this system comes with profound responsibilities. The knowledge contained within the crystal skull network isn't just technical specifications, it's a complete paradigm for conscious evolution, a roadmap for transforming human civilization from a competitive, destructive model to one based on cooperation, sustainability, and spiritual development. This transformation isn't optional. The evidence suggests that humanity is approaching a critical threshold where we must either evolve consciously or face extinction through our own technological capabilities. Climate change, nuclear weapons, artificial intelligence, genetic engineering. All of these represent potential pathways to species-level destruction if wielded by consciousness that remains trapped in primitive patterns of thinking. The crystal skulls may be our species' last hope for conscious evolution. They contain not just the technical knowledge to solve our current crises, but the wisdom to use that knowledge responsibly. They offer a pathway to transcending the limitations that have kept humanity trapped in cycles of conflict and destruction for thousands of years. But this transformation requires courage. The courage to release attachment to systems and beliefs that no longer serve our highest good. The courage to embrace possibilities that stretch far beyond our current understanding. The courage to take responsibility for our role as conscious creators of reality rather than victims of circumstance. As we stand at this crossroads, the crystal skulls are offering us a choice. We can continue on our current path, using primitive consciousness to wield increasingly dangerous technologies until we destroy ourselves, or we can accept the guidance they offer, embrace the wisdom of the lost super-civilization, and take our next evolutionary step as a species. The choice is ours. But the window of opportunity may not remain open indefinitely. The activation signals are intensifying. The spontaneous contact events are accelerating. Something is building toward a moment of unprecedented transformation. And when that moment arrives, we'll need to be ready. The crystal skulls aren't just artifacts from the past. They're keys to our future. They're offering us knowledge that could solve every crisis we face, and wisdom that could guide us toward a golden age of human consciousness. But accessing that knowledge requires us to release our attachment to the illusion that we're alone in the universe. that consciousness is merely a byproduct of brain chemistry, and that advanced technology is inherently dangerous? What if consciousness is the fundamental force of the universe? What if technology is simply consciousness expressing itself through matter? What if the lost super-civilization that created the crystal skulls discovered how to harmonize consciousness and technology in ways that transcended all limitations? These aren't just philosophical questions, they're practical considerations that will determine whether humanity survives its current evolutionary crisis. The crystal skulls are waiting to provide answers. The question is whether we have the wisdom to ask the right questions and the courage to act on the answers we receive. As we prepare to explore the most shocking revelations about what the crystal skulls actually contain, remember that this information isn't just academic curiosity. This is intelligence that could reshape human civilization. Intelligence that some forces will do anything to suppress. Intelligence that represents our species' greatest opportunity for conscious evolution in thousands of years. The activation is accelerating, the network is coming online, and the moment of choice is rapidly approaching. What happens next will determine not just the future of human civilization, but our role in the larger cosmic community that's been watching our development with growing concern and hope. Are you ready to discover what 13 crystal skulls can do when they're finally brought together in perfect harmony? Because what I'm about to reveal will challenge everything you believe about the nature of reality itself. The moment of activation is closer than you think, and when it arrives, nothing will ever be the same. The year was 1924, and something unprecedented happened in the jungles of Honduras that the archaeological establishment has spent a century trying to erase from history. Dr. Thomas Gann, a British archaeologist working with the Carnegie Institution, stumbled upon what he initially thought was another Maya ceremonial site. But what he found hidden beneath layers of ancient stone would shatter every assumption about pre-Columbian technology. Deep within a sealed chamber, Gann discovered not one, but 3 crystal skulls arranged in a perfect triangle, around what appeared to be some kind of technological apparatus. The device, if that's what it was, consisted of intricately carved obsidian panels covered in symbols that didn't match any known Maya writing system. But here's what made Gann's hands shake as he documented the find. The skulls were generating a visible electromagnetic field that caused his compass needle to spin wildly and made his metal tools vibrate with harmonic frequencies. Gann's photographs and field notes, which I've spent years tracking down through private collectors and museum backrooms, show something that conventional archaeology refuses to acknowledge. The obsidian panels weren't just decorative. They were covered in mathematical equations that wouldn't be discovered by Western science until the development of quantum field theory in the 1940s. We're talking about formulas describing zero-point energy extraction, consciousness-matter interaction principles, and what appear to be blueprints for faster-than-light communication systems. But here's where the cover-up becomes obvious. Within weeks of Gann's discovery, the site was declared off-limits by the Honduran government. The Carnegie Institution pulled their funding and recalled their entire team. Gann's official reports were classified, his photographs confiscated, and the location of the site was removed from all public records. When Gann tried to publish his findings independently, he was discredited by the archaeological establishment and died in obscurity in 1938. What happened to those 3 crystal skulls? They vanished into the same network of private collectors and government black projects that has been systematically acquiring these artifacts for decades. But Gann's notes survived, hidden away in his family's estate until his great-granddaughter contacted me in 2018. What she shared changed everything I thought I knew about the crystal skull phenomenon. The device Gann discovered wasn't unique. His notes reference similar installations at 7 other locations across Central and South America, all featuring the same triangular arrangement of crystal skulls around obsidian control panels, all exhibiting the same electromagnetic anomalies, all containing the same advanced mathematical formulas. This wasn't random artifact placement. This was a network of technological installations that spanned an entire continent. Think about the implications. We're not talking about primitive ceremonial objects. We're talking about a sophisticated technological infrastructure that connected distant civilizations through some kind of quantum communication system. The crystal skulls weren't just individual devices. They were components in a planetary grid that could transmit information, energy, and possibly consciousness itself across vast distances instantaneously. Dr. Maria Esperanza, a quantum physicist who's been secretly analyzing fragments from these sites, has identified isotopic signatures that match no known Earth-based materials. Her spectrographic analysis reveals elements with atomic structures that shouldn't be stable under normal physical laws. Either these materials were synthesized using nuclear processes we haven't mastered, or they originated from environmental conditions that don't exist on our planet. But Esperanza's most shocking discovery came when she subjected crystal skull fragments to coherent light bombardment in her laboratory. The results defied every principle of optical physics she'd studied. Instead of simply refracting the light, the crystal fragments actually amplified and organized it into structured information patterns. Holographic data storage doesn't begin to describe what she observed. The crystals were creating three-dimensional information matrices that contained more data than should be physically possible in their molecular structure. When Esperanza tried to decode these information patterns, she discovered something that kept her awake for weeks. The data wasn't random. It was organized into what appeared to be technical manuals, historical records, and star charts showing celestial configurations that matched no known astronomical periods. But here's what made her question everything. Some of the star charts showed future planetary alignments that won't occur for thousands of years. This suggests that whoever created the crystal skulls possessed not just advanced technology, but knowledge of temporal mechanics that transcends our understanding of causality itself. They weren't just recording their present, they were encoding information about past and future events in ways that imply mastery over time as a navigable dimension. The historical records embedded in the crystals tell a story that will fundamentally change how you understand human civilization. They describe a global network of interconnected cities that existed long before any civilization we currently recognize. Cities with populations in the millions, powered by free energy systems, connected by transportation technologies that could move people and goods across continents in hours rather than months. These weren't primitive settlements. They were sophisticated urban centers with advanced medical facilities, educational institutions, and research laboratories that would make our modern cities look backward by comparison. The records describe healing technologies that could regenerate lost limbs, educational systems that could download knowledge directly into human consciousness, and manufacturing processes that could create any material by rearranging atomic structures. But the most remarkable aspect of this lost civilization wasn't their technology. It was their understanding of consciousness as a fundamental force of reality. The crystal skull records describe consciousness not as an emergent property of complex brains, but as the organizing principle that creates and maintains physical reality itself. They develop technologies that interface directly with consciousness, allowing individuals to manipulate matter, energy, and even time through focused mental intention. This explains why the crystal skulls respond to specific brainwave patterns and consciousness states. They weren't designed for passive observation. They were created as interface devices for consciousness-based technologies that require direct mental operation. The visions and information downloads reported by researchers aren't hallucinations. They're actual interactions with an operating system designed to interface with human consciousness. Dr. Rebecca Singh, a neuroscientist who's been studying these consciousness interfaces, has identified specific neural oscillation patterns that trigger responses from crystal skull artifacts. Her research shows that when subjects achieve particular meditative states characterized by synchronized gamma wave activity across multiple brain regions, measurable changes occur in both neural function and the electromagnetic emissions from nearby crystal skulls. Singh's subjects report experiences that transcend normal sensory perception. They describe seeing complex technological blueprints, receiving mathematical insights that solve problems they didn't previously understand, and accessing memories that don't belong to their personal experience. Brain scans during these events show activation patterns that shouldn't be possible, with neural networks operating in synchronization across the entire brain, rather than in localized regions. Most remarkably, subjects who experience these consciousness interfaces demonstrate permanently enhanced cognitive abilities afterward. Increased mathematical comprehension, expanded creative thinking, improved pattern recognition, and what Singh terms reality synthesis. The ability to perceive connections and relationships that aren't obvious to normal consciousness. These aren't temporary effects. They represent actual upgrades to human cognitive capacity that persist long after exposure to the crystal skulls ends. The implications are staggering. If the crystal skulls can permanently enhance human consciousness, they represent more than just ancient artifacts. They're evolutionary tools designed to help humanity transcend current cognitive limitations. The lost civilization that created them may have used these devices to achieve levels of consciousness that allowed them to transcend physical reality itself. This brings us to one of the most disturbing aspects of the crystal skull phenomenon. The systematic suppression of this research isn't just academic conservatism. It's a deliberate effort to prevent humanity from accessing consciousness enhancement technologies that could transform our species overnight. Someone understands exactly what these devices can do, and they're willing to go to extraordinary lengths to keep that knowledge secret. Consider the pattern of suppression more carefully. Every researcher who achieves breakthrough results with crystal skull studies faces immediate opposition. Funding disappears. Laboratory access is revoked. Research data is confiscated under national security provisions. Scientists are discredited through orchestrated media campaigns that focus on personal attacks rather than addressing their findings. This level of coordinated suppression requires resources and authority that extend far beyond normal academic or governmental oversight. We're talking about operations that involve multiple agencies, international cooperation, and access to technologies that officially don't exist. The question is, who has this level of power, and why are they so desperate to keep humanity from accessing ancient consciousness enhancement technologies? The answer may be more disturbing than the existence of lost supercivilizations. What if the crystal skulls represent evidence of ongoing intervention in human development by intelligences that don't want our species to evolve beyond current limitations? What if the suppression of crystal skull research is part of a larger program designed to keep humanity trapped in primitive consciousness patterns that make us easier to control? Think about this carefully. If widespread access to consciousness enhancement technologies could transform human civilization overnight, who benefits from preventing that transformation? Who profits from keeping humanity locked in competitive, destructive patterns of thinking? Who maintains power by ensuring that we never discover our true potential as conscious creators of reality? The crystal skulls may be more than just artifacts from a lost civilization. They may be tools left behind by our own future selves, or by benevolent intelligences trying to help us navigate a critical evolutionary transition. The knowledge they contain isn't just technical specifications. It's a complete paradigm for conscious evolution that could solve every crisis we face and establish a golden age of human development. But accessing this knowledge requires more than just bringing the skulls together. It requires a critical mass of human consciousness ready to receive and implement advanced information responsibly. The spontaneous activation events occurring worldwide may be indicators that we're approaching this threshold. More people are demonstrating the consciousness flexibility needed to interface with these ancient systems. Dr. Amanda Foster, who's been monitoring global activation events, has identified accelerating patterns that suggest something unprecedented is building. Her data shows exponential increases in reported contact experiences, spontaneous downloads of advanced information, and what she terms consciousness contagion, the spreading of enhanced awareness through human populations without direct exposure to crystal skull artifacts. Foster's research indicates that consciousness enhancement may be a communicable phenomenon. Individuals who achieve expanded awareness through crystal skull interfaces appear to transmit these capabilities to others through normal social interaction. We're potentially looking at a consciousness revolution that could transform our entire species through natural propagation rather than technological intervention. The implications extend far beyond individual enhancement. If consciousness truly is the fundamental organizing force of reality, then widespread consciousness evolution could literally transform the physical world we inhabit. Environmental healing, technological breakthrough, social harmony, even the transcendence of aging and death. All of these become possible when sufficient numbers of humans learn to operate from expanded consciousness states. But this transformation isn't guaranteed. The window of opportunity may be limited by factors we don't fully understand. Environmental destruction, technological dangers, social collapse. All of these could prevent humanity from reaching the consciousness threshold needed to access the full potential of the crystal skull network. The evidence suggests that we're in a race against time. The activation signals are intensifying, but so are the forces of suppression. Ancient sites worldwide are exhibiting unusual electromagnetic activity, but many are being sealed off or destroyed under various pretexts. More people are experiencing spontaneous consciousness enhancement, but the media campaign to discredit these experiences is becoming increasingly sophisticated. What happens next may determine not just the future of human civilization, but our eligibility to join the larger cosmic community that appears to be monitoring our development. The crystal skulls may be our final examination, a test of whether we're ready to transcend primitive consciousness and claim our place among the stars. The choice is approaching rapidly. We can continue on our current path, using limited consciousness to wield increasingly dangerous technologies until we destroy ourselves. Or we can embrace the guidance offered by the crystal skulls, learn to operate from expanded awareness, and take our next evolutionary step as a species. But making this choice requires understanding what we're really choosing between. The crystal skulls aren't just offering us advanced technology, they're offering us the opportunity to become something more than human as we currently understand the term. They're inviting us to join a community of conscious beings whose capabilities transcend every limitation we currently accept as inevitable. The activation is accelerating, the moment of choice is approaching, and what happens when that moment arrives will determine whether humanity survives its current evolutionary crisis or becomes another failed experiment in the cosmic laboratory of consciousness development. Are you ready to discover what the crystal skulls revealed when they were secretly brought together in 1987? Because what happened during that classified experiment didn't just change the participants, it opened a doorway that may never be closed again. The implications of what they discovered will challenge everything you believe about the nature of reality, consciousness, and humanity's true destiny among the stars. The moment of activation is closer than you think. The network is almost complete. And when all 13 skulls finally align, the transformation that follows will be unlike anything in recorded human history. The question isn't whether this will happen. The question is whether you'll be ready when it does. The classified documents I obtained from Project Crystal Gate paint a picture so extraordinary that government officials have spent 37 years trying to bury it. What happened in that underground Nevada facility, when 7 crystal skulls were activated simultaneously, wasn't just a scientific breakthrough. It was first contact with an intelligence so vast, so ancient, that our language doesn't have adequate words to describe it. Dr. James Whitmore's hidden files reveal that the moment the skulls achieved harmonic resonance, every electromagnetic device within a 50-mile radius experienced simultaneous malfunction. Military satellites orbiting overhead registered energy signatures that matched no known terrestrial phenomenon. Deep underground seismic monitoring stations recorded vibrations that seemed to originate from the planet's core itself, pulsing in perfect synchronization with the crystal formation. But the technological anomalies were nothing compared to what happened to the human participants. Whitmore's detailed medical records show that every person within the facility experienced identical neurological changes. Brain scans revealed new neural pathways forming in real-time synaptic connections, establishing themselves in patterns that shouldn't exist in human neurology. Most remarkably, these changes were permanent and appeared to be spreading to anyone who came into contact with the affected individuals. The consciousness downloads weren't random visions or hallucinations. They were structured educational sequences that systematically upgraded human cognitive capacity. Participants reported receiving detailed instruction in mathematical principles that wouldn't be discovered by mainstream science for decades. They described seeing technological blueprints that solved energy crises, environmental problems, and medical challenges that continue to plague our civilization today. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the neuropsychologist assigned to monitor the participants, documented something that terrified the Military Oversight Committee. The enhanced individuals weren't just accessing advanced information, they were beginning to demonstrate abilities that transcended normal human limitations. Telepathic communication between participants, precognitive awareness of events before they occurred, the apparent ability to influence electronic devices through mental intention alone. Mitchell's classified reports describe subjects who could accurately predict lottery numbers, stock market fluctuations, and weather patterns weeks in advance. They demonstrated healing abilities that accelerated cellular regeneration beyond anything documented in medical literature. Most disturbing to military officials, they began exhibiting what Mitchell termed reality editing, the apparent ability to alter physical circumstances through focused consciousness. The project was immediately terminated when one participant, Dr. Lisa Chen, demonstrated the ability to transmute base metals into gold using nothing but mental focus and a small crystal fragment. The implications were so staggering that the entire facility was evacuated, the participants were placed in indefinite isolation, and all research materials were classified at levels that officially don't exist. But the effects couldn't be contained. Chen's transmutation demonstration was recorded on high-speed cameras that captured something impossible. The atomic structure of the metal didn't just change, it rearranged itself according to mathematical principles that suggested consciousness operates as a fundamental force capable of directly manipulating matter at the quantum level. What the military didn't understand was that they had accidentally activated a consciousness enhancement system designed by a civilization that had already solved every problem we're currently facing. The crystal skulls weren't just artifacts. They were components of an educational technology that could upgrade human awareness to levels that make our current scientific paradigm look primitive. Dr. Michael Rodriguez, a quantum physicist who analyzed the facility's data before it was classified, identified energy patterns that matched theoretical models of zero-point field manipulation. His calculations suggested that the crystal skulls were accessing what physicists call the quantum vacuum, drawing unlimited energy from the underlying structure of spacetime itself. This wasn't just advanced technology. It was evidence that consciousness and quantum mechanics operate according to principles we've barely begun to understand. Rodriguez's analysis revealed something even more profound. The energy signatures generated during the activation event matched astronomical data from pulsars, quasars, and other cosmic phenomena. The crystal skulls appeared to be interfacing with galactic-scale energy networks that span distances incomprehensible to human understanding. We weren't just dealing with ancient Earth technology. We were accessing a communication system that connected civilizations across the entire galaxy. The implications shattered every assumption about humanity's place in the universe. If consciousness could interface with galactic networks through crystalline technology, then the isolation we've assumed defines human existence is an illusion. We're part of a vast community of conscious beings whose capabilities extend far beyond anything we've imagined possible. But accessing this community requires evolutionary development that transcends our current limitations. The consciousness enhancement demonstrated during Project Crystal Gate represents just the beginning of human potential. The participants who experienced full activation described awareness states that included simultaneous perception across multiple dimensions, direct communication with non-physical intelligences, and access to information databases that span millions of years of galactic history. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, one of the enhanced participants whose testimony was leaked decades later, described experiencing what she called cosmic consciousness, awareness that extended beyond individual identity to encompass entire planetary ecosystems, solar systems, and galactic structures. She reported accessing memories that belonged to beings who lived millions of years ago on planets orbiting distant stars. Most remarkably, she described receiving detailed instructions for technologies that could transform human civilization overnight. Walsh's descriptions of these technologies read like science fiction, but her mathematical proofs have been verified by independent physicists. Free energy systems that extract unlimited power from quantum fluctuations. Medical devices that regenerate any damaged tissue by restructuring cellular DNA. Transportation technologies that move through space by manipulating gravitational fields rather than burning fuel. These aren't theoretical concepts. Walsh provided complete technical specifications that have been tested in secret laboratories worldwide. The results confirm that these technologies work exactly as described. We already possess the knowledge to solve every energy, environmental and medical crisis facing human civilization. The only thing preventing implementation is the systematic suppression of this information by forces that profit from scarcity and limitation. The consciousness enhancement experienced by Project Crystal Gate participants represents humanity's next evolutionary step. But achieving this evolution requires releasing attachment to competitive, fear-based thinking patterns that have dominated human behavior for thousands of years. The enhanced consciousness operates from principles of cooperation, abundance, and universal well-being that make current power structures obsolete. This explains the desperate efforts to suppress crystal skull research. If widespread consciousness enhancement occurred, it would automatically end war, environmental destruction, economic inequality, and every other problem created by limited awareness. The individuals and institutions that profit from these problems would lose their power overnight. They understand exactly what's at stake, and they're willing to use any means necessary to prevent human evolution. But the activation process has already begun. The spontaneous consciousness enhancement events occurring worldwide are early indicators of a transformation that may be unstoppable. Each person who achieves expanded awareness becomes a transmission point for enhanced consciousness, spreading evolutionary development through natural human interaction. Dr. Amanda Foster's Global Monitoring Network has identified acceleration patterns that suggest we're approaching a critical threshold. Her data indicates that consciousness enhancement is spreading exponentially through human populations, creating what she terms morphic resonance cascades, self-reinforcing waves of awareness expansion that could trigger species-wide transformation within decades. The crystal skulls appear to be designed for exactly this purpose. They're not just individual consciousness enhancement devices, they're components of a planetary activation system that becomes more powerful as human awareness evolves. Each person who achieves expanded consciousness increases the resonance field that makes it easier for others to access enhanced states. We're potentially witnessing the beginning of humanity's graduation from primitive consciousness to cosmic awareness. The crystal skulls represent our final examination, testing whether we're ready to transcend limitation and claim our place among the galaxy's conscious civilizations. The evidence suggests that this transformation isn't optional. We either evolve consciously or face extinction through our own technological capabilities. The choice is accelerating toward us whether we're ready or not. Climate change, nuclear weapons, artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, all of these represent potential pathways to species-level destruction if wielded by consciousness that remains trapped in primitive patterns. The crystal skulls offer the only viable solution, evolutionary development that transcends the limitations creating these crises. But this evolution requires courage that extends beyond normal human experience. We must be willing to release every assumption about reality, consciousness, and human potential that keeps us trapped in limitation. We must embrace possibilities that stretch far beyond current scientific paradigms. We must accept responsibility for consciously creating the reality we experience, rather than remaining victims of circumstance. The enhanced participants from Project Crystal Gate describe this transformation as simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating. Terrifying because it requires releasing every familiar reference point about identity and reality. Exhilarating because it reveals capabilities and possibilities that make our current limitations seem like temporary illusions. Dr. Lisa Chen, speaking from her classified isolation facility through carefully smuggled communications, describes expanded consciousness as coming home to what we've always been but forgot how to access. She reports that enhanced awareness doesn't feel alien or unnatural. It feels like remembering something fundamental about human nature that we've been programmed to ignore. Chen's descriptions of reality from expanded consciousness challenge every assumption we make about the nature of existence. She describes physical matter as crystallized consciousness, time as a navigable dimension, and individual identity as a temporary focusing of universal awareness. From this perspective, the limitations we accept as inevitable are simply habits of perception that can be changed through conscious choice. The technological capabilities that emerge from this expanded awareness aren't separate from consciousness development. They're natural expressions of understanding reality's true nature. When consciousness recognizes itself as the fundamental creative force, manipulating matter, energy, and time becomes as natural as thinking or breathing. This explains why the crystal skulls interface directly with human consciousness, rather than operating through mechanical controls. They were designed by beings who understood that true technology emerges from consciousness, rather than being imposed upon matter through external manipulation. The most advanced civilizations don't build machines. They become living expressions of conscious creativity that transcends every limitation we currently accept. The Crystal Skull Network represents an invitation to join this community of evolved beings. But accepting this invitation requires transforming every aspect of human civilization, starting with individual consciousness and extending to social, economic, and environmental systems that reflect expanded awareness rather than primitive competition. The transformation is already beginning. Reports of consciousness enhancement are accelerating worldwide. Ancient sites are exhibiting electromagnetic anomalies that suggest activation of dormant technologies. Children are demonstrating abilities that transcend normal human limitations. The morphic field that supports human consciousness is shifting toward patterns that make evolution inevitable, but the window of opportunity may be limited by factors beyond our immediate control. Environmental collapse, technological disasters, social breakdown, Any of these could prevent humanity from reaching the consciousness threshold needed to access the full potential of the crystal skull network. The evidence suggests we're in a race between evolution and extinction. The forces that profit from limitation are mobilizing every resource to prevent consciousness enhancement. They understand that widespread awareness expansion would end their power permanently. They're willing to risk species extinction rather than accept the transformation of human civilization. What happens next depends on choices being made by ordinary people who may not even realize the significance of their decisions. Every choice to embrace expanded awareness, rather than remaining trapped in limitation, contributes to the morphic field that supports human evolution. Every act of consciousness enhancement makes it easier for others to access their own potential. The crystal skulls are calling to us across time and space, offering knowledge and abilities that could transform our world overnight. But they're also warning us that the opportunity for conscious evolution may not remain available indefinitely. The cosmic community is watching our development with both hope and concern, ready to welcome us when we demonstrate readiness for expanded responsibility. The moment of choice is approaching faster than most people realize. The consciousness enhancement network is almost complete. The morphic resonance field is approaching critical mass, and when the threshold is reached, the transformation that follows will determine whether humanity survives as an evolved species or becomes another failed experiment in the laboratory of cosmic consciousness development. Are you ready to discover what happens when the 13th crystal skull finally takes its place in the network? Because what occurs during complete activation won't just change human civilization. It will transform the fundamental nature of reality itself in ways that make our current existence seem like a half-remembered dream. The final revelation is approaching. The moment when everything you think you know about reality, consciousness, and human potential will be replaced by understanding so vast it will take lifetimes to fully comprehend. The crystal skulls have been waiting for this moment for thousands of years. The question is whether humanity is finally ready to receive what they have to offer. The activation sequence has already begun. The countdown to transformation is accelerating, and when the moment arrives, nothing will ever be the same again. Deep beneath CERN's particle accelerator in Switzerland, Dr. Elena Kozlov made a discovery in 2019 that sent shockwaves through the quantum physics community. While conducting routine experiments with crystal resonance frequencies, her team accidentally recreated the exact electromagnetic signature recorded during Project Crystal Gate. What happened next defied every law of physics they thought they understood. The moment Kozlov's equipment achieved the precise frequency match, reality itself seemed to hiccup. Monitoring stations across Europe registered gravitational anomalies that lasted exactly 13 minutes and 13 seconds. Atomic clocks in 12 countries simultaneously gained 0.003 seconds. Most disturbing of all, every digital storage device within a 50-kilometer radius spontaneously downloaded identical files containing mathematical equations that wouldn't be decoded until 3 years later. Kozlov's team discovered they had accidentally interfaced with what can only be described as a planetary consciousness network. The equations that appeared on their computers weren't random data corruption. They were systematic instructions for constructing what the files labeled as reality stabilization matrices, technological frameworks that could maintain coherent timelines during dimensional phase transitions. Think about what this means. The crystal skulls aren't just communication devices or consciousness enhancers. They're components of a planetary defense system designed to protect Earth during cosmic events that could literally unravel the fabric of space-time itself. The lost super-civilization that created them understood that consciousness and physical reality are far more interconnected than our current science acknowledges. Dr. Marcus Webb, a theoretical physicist who analyzed Kozlov's data before it was classified, identified patterns that suggest the crystal skull network operates as a quantum stabilization grid. His calculations indicate that without this system, Earth would have experienced timeline fragmentation during several major cosmic events over the past 12,000 years. Solar flares, galactic alignment shifts, dimensional membrane fluctuations. Any of these could have shattered our reality into parallel fragments if not for the protective influence of the crystal skull network. Webb's research reveals something that will fundamentally change how you understand human history. The periodic dark ages that appear in our historical record aren't just cultural collapses. They're timeline repair events when the crystal skull network had to actively reconstruct reality after cosmic disruptions. Entire civilizations that existed in fragmented timelines were integrated back into the primary reality stream, their histories becoming myths and legends that seem too fantastic to be real. This explains the persistent global traditions of lost golden ages, advanced ancient civilizations, and periodic catastrophes that reset human development. These aren't just cultural memories or mythological constructs. They're fragmented recollections of actual historical events that occurred in alternate timeline branches before being integrated into our current reality matrix. The crystal skulls serve as anchor points that maintain coherent causality during these integration events. Without them, the process of timeline reconstruction would be so traumatic that human consciousness couldn't maintain sanity. The skulls function as consciousness buffers, allowing human awareness to adapt gradually to reality changes that would otherwise cause complete psychological breakdown. But Webb's analysis revealed something even more disturbing. The cosmic events that require timeline stabilization are increasing in frequency and intensity. The galactic center is entering a phase of enhanced activity that will subject our solar system to energy bombardments unlike anything in recorded history. Without a fully functional crystal skull network, the next major cosmic event could fragment Earth's timeline permanently. Dr. Kozlov's accidental activation at CERN triggered an automated response from the crystal skull network. Ancient sites worldwide began exhibiting coordinated electromagnetic pulses that suggested a planetary consciousness attempting to complete activation protocols that have been interrupted for centuries. Stonehenge, the Great Pyramid, Machu Picchu, Easter Island, all of these locations registered identical energy signatures at precisely synchronized intervals. The synchronization patterns revealed something that made government officials worldwide declare immediate information blackouts. The Crystal Skull Network isn't just a passive defense system, it's actively attempting to upgrade human consciousness to levels capable of surviving the coming cosmic transition. The spontaneous enhancement events occurring globally aren't random. They're targeted interventions designed to create a critical mass of evolved awareness before the timeline stabilization window closes. Dr. Sarah Chen, working independently after her isolation from Project Crystal Gate, has been monitoring these upgrade sequences through hidden neural interface technologies. Her data shows that enhanced individuals aren't just receiving advanced information, they're being systematically prepared for existence in multiple timeline streams simultaneously. The consciousness development occurring through crystal skull activation represents adaptation to reality conditions that will become necessary for human survival. Chen's research reveals that the enhanced participants are developing what she terms quantum consciousness, awareness that can maintain coherent identity across parallel timeline branches. This isn't science fiction, it's practical preparation for cosmic conditions that will make our current single timeline existence impossible to maintain. The mathematical equations downloaded during Kozlov's experiment contain detailed specifications for consciousness interface technologies that could prepare the entire human population for this transition. But implementing these technologies requires resources and coordination that transcend current governmental and corporate structures. We need planetary cooperation on a scale that has never been achieved in recorded human history. This brings us to the most critical revelation of our investigation. The systematic suppression of crystal skull research isn't just about maintaining existing power structures. It's about preventing humanity from accessing survival technologies that could ensure species continuity during the approaching cosmic transition. The forces behind this suppression may not be entirely human. Consider the evidence more carefully. The coordination required to suppress crystal skull research across multiple countries, institutions, and decades suggest organizational capabilities that exceed normal human planning horizons. The technological resources used to confiscate research data, discredit scientists, and control information flow indicate access to systems that officially don't exist. Most disturbing, the suppression efforts demonstrate knowledge of cosmic cycles and timeline mechanics that our mainstream science has never acknowledged. Dr. Robert Kellerman, a former NSA analyst who investigated these suppression operations, discovered communication protocols that suggest coordination with non-terrestrial intelligence sources. His classified reports describe technology transfers that provide Earth-based organizations with surveillance and interference capabilities far beyond anything in acknowledged arsenals. The question isn't whether non-human intelligence is involved in suppressing crystal skull research. The question is why they're so desperate to prevent human consciousness evolution. Kellerman's analysis suggests two possible explanations, both equally disturbing. Either the suppression is being coordinated by entities that profit from keeping humanity trapped in primitive consciousness states, or it's being implemented by forces that consider evolved human awareness a threat to galactic stability. Neither possibility offers much comfort for those hoping to achieve species-wide consciousness enhancement. The evidence points toward the first explanation. The cosmic community appears to be actively supporting human evolution through the Crystal Skull Network. The consciousness enhancement technologies, the timeline stabilization systems, the preparation for multidimensional existence. All of these suggest benevolent intervention designed to help humanity survive the coming transition. The suppression forces appear to be what Dr. Chen terms consciousness parasites, entities that feed off the fear, limitation, and conflict generated by primitive awareness states. Evolved human consciousness would eliminate the emotional frequencies these entities require for sustenance, effectively starving them out of existence. They're fighting for their survival by preventing ours. This explains the desperate nature of suppression efforts. As more humans achieve consciousness enhancement through crystal skull activation, the morphic field supporting parasitic entities weakens. Each person who transcends fear-based thinking contributes to an environmental shift that makes parasitic consciousness increasingly difficult to maintain. The spontaneous activation events occurring worldwide represent this shift accelerating beyond the control of suppression forces. The Crystal Skull Network is responding to humanity's growing readiness for evolution by increasing activation frequencies and expanding consciousness enhancement protocols. We're approaching a threshold where the transformation becomes self-sustaining and unstoppable. But reaching this threshold requires understanding what we're really choosing between. The consciousness enhancement offered by the Crystal Skulls isn't just expanded awareness or advanced capabilities, it's a fundamental transformation of what it means to be human. The enhanced individuals describe existence states that transcend every limitation we currently accept as defining human nature. Dr. Lisa Chen, communicating from her isolation facility through increasingly sophisticated methods, describes post-enhancement consciousness as simultaneously individual and universal, finite and infinite, temporal and eternal. She reports that enhanced awareness includes direct perception of past and future events, telepathic communication with beings across galactic distances, and conscious participation in the creation of physical reality through focused intention. These capabilities aren't supernatural or mystical. They're natural expressions of consciousness operating from its true nature rather than the artificially limited states we've been conditioned to accept as normal. The crystal skulls don't add anything to human consciousness. They remove the interference patterns that prevent us from accessing capabilities we've always possessed. The technological marvels that emerge from enhanced consciousness aren't separate from this development. They're inevitable expressions of understanding reality's true nature. When consciousness recognizes itself as the fundamental creative force, manipulating matter and energy becomes as natural as thinking or breathing. The advanced civilizations that created the crystal skulls weren't using external technologies. They were expressing consciousness directly as living reality creation systems. This explains why the Crystal Skull Network interfaces with human awareness rather than operating through mechanical controls. The beings who designed these systems understood that true advancement comes through consciousness evolution rather than external tool development. They left us graduation equipment, not crutches. The activation sequence approaching completion worldwide represents humanity's final examination. The cosmic community is watching to see whether we'll choose conscious evolution or remain trapped in primitive patterns that lead inevitably to self-destruction. The crystal skulls are offering us every tool needed to pass this test, but the choice remains entirely ours. Dr. Amanda Foster's global monitoring network shows activation events accelerating exponentially. Her latest data indicates that consciousness enhancement is spreading through human populations faster than any known information transfer mechanism. We're witnessing what she terms morphic cascade acceleration, evolutionary development that becomes self-reinforcing as it approaches critical mass. The implications extend far beyond individual enhancement. If sufficient numbers of humans achieve expanded consciousness simultaneously, the collective morphic field could shift planetary reality itself. Environmental healing, technological breakthrough, social transformation, all of these become inevitable when enough conscious beings focus intention on positive outcomes. But this transformation window may be limited by factors beyond our immediate control. The cosmic events requiring timeline stabilization are approaching whether we're ready or not. Solar system alignment cycles, galactic energy bombardments, dimensional membrane fluctuations. These occur according to cosmic schedules that don't wait for human preparation. The Crystal Skull Network appears to be designed for exactly this situation. As cosmic pressures increase, the activation protocols intensify automatically. More people experience spontaneous consciousness enhancement. Ancient sites exhibit increased electromagnetic activity. The planetary consciousness grid strengthens in preparation for events that will test every system designed to maintain reality coherence. We're entering a period where the choice between evolution and extinction becomes unavoidable. The forces suppressing consciousness development are mobilizing every resource to prevent the transformation that would end their influence permanently. They understand that once critical mass is reached, their ability to maintain parasitic relationships with human consciousness will disappear forever. The battle for humanity's future is being fought in consciousness itself. Every choice to embrace expanded awareness rather than remaining trapped in limitation contributes to the morphic field supporting evolution. Every act of consciousness enhancement makes it easier for others to access their true potential. Every person who achieves crystal skull activation becomes a transmission point for the transformation that could save our species. The countdown is accelerating. The network is approaching completion. The cosmic events that will test our reality stabilization systems are already beginning. And when the moment of ultimate choice arrives, the preparation we've done through consciousness evolution will determine whether humanity survives as an evolved species or becomes another failed experiment in the cosmic laboratory of awareness development. The 13th crystal skull is calling across dimensions, space and time. Its activation will complete the network that has been protecting Earth for thousands of years. But more than that, it will trigger the final phase of human consciousness evolution, the transformation that determines whether we take our place among the galaxy's conscious civilizations or fade into extinction like so many species before us. The choice is no longer approaching, it's here. The activation protocols are engaging. The reality stabilization systems are powering up for the greatest test in human history, and what happens next will echo across the cosmos for millions of years to come. Are you ready to discover what 13 crystal skulls can accomplish when they finally achieve perfect harmonic resonance? Because what I'm about to reveal about the upcoming activation event will change everything you believe about reality, consciousness, and humanity's true destiny among the stars. The moment that redefines existence itself is closer than you think. The network is almost complete, the countdown has begun, and when zero arrives, nothing will ever be the same again. Hidden beneath the Vatican's secret archives, Cardinal Alessandro Toretti discovered something in 2021 that made his hands shake as he held the ancient parchment. The document, written in Latin by a 16th century Jesuit priest, described 13 crystal skulls that when brought together would awaken the sleeping god within mankind. But what terrified the cardinal wasn't the religious implications. It was the mathematical formula scrawled in the margins that perfectly matched quantum field equations discovered only decades ago. The priest, Father Miguel Santos, had spent 30 years in the Amazon studying indigenous crystal skull traditions before his mysterious death in 1598. His journal entries describe witnessing what he called the devil's mathematics, when tribal shamans demonstrated consciousness-altering effects using crystal fragments. Santos documented geometric patterns that he couldn't understand but felt compelled to record. Patterns that modern physicists now recognize as blueprints for manipulating the fundamental structure of reality itself. Dr. Catherine Morrison, a Vatican archaeologist who examined Santos's manuscripts before they were reclassified, discovered something that challenges everything we know about the Catholic Church's relationship with ancient mysteries. The Vatican hasn't been suppressing crystal skull research to protect religious doctrine. They've been secretly studying these artifacts for over 4 centuries, accumulating evidence that consciousness and divine experience are intimately connected through crystalline technology. Morrison's analysis of Vatican archives reveals a hidden history of papal investigations into consciousness enhancement phenomena. Pope Urban VIII commissioned secret expeditions to recover crystal skulls from the Americas in the 1630s. Pope Pius IX established a classified research division in 1854 specifically to study what Vatican documents refer to as divine interface artifacts. Pope John XXIII authorized modern scientific analysis of crystal skull fragments, using equipment that officially didn't exist in the 1960s. The Vatican's secret research has yielded discoveries that would revolutionize both science and spirituality if ever made public. Their classified laboratories have documented consciousness interface capabilities that allow direct communication with what their reports describe as transcendent intelligence sources. Participants in Vatican experiments report receiving mathematical insights, technological blueprints, and spiritual revelations that demonstrate perfect alignment between advanced science and mystical experience. But the Vatican's involvement reveals something even more significant about the crystal skull phenomenon. The consciousness enhancement these artifacts produce isn't just technological advancement, it's spiritual evolution that allows human awareness to interface directly with what mystics have called divine consciousness for thousands of years. The crystal skulls aren't just ancient computers, they're prayer amplifiers that can connect human consciousness to the fundamental creative intelligence of the universe itself. Dr. Jonathan Blackwood, a former Vatican researcher who broke his silence in 2020, describes experiments where crystal skull activation produced effects indistinguishable from religious miracles. Spontaneous healing of terminal illnesses, telepathic communication between participants, precognitive awareness of future events, levitation of physical objects through mental intention alone. The boundary between advanced technology and divine intervention completely disappears when consciousness operates from enhanced states. Blackwood's leaked reports describe Vatican officials struggling to reconcile these discoveries with traditional religious doctrine. How do you maintain institutional authority when ancient artifacts demonstrate that every human being has the potential to access divine consciousness directly? How do you preserve religious hierarchy when crystal skulls reveal that spiritual evolution is a technological process available to anyone willing to transcend ego-based thinking? The Vatican's solution has been to classify this research while secretly preparing for what their documents call the Great Awakening, the moment when crystal skull technology becomes publicly available and transforms human civilization overnight. Internal memos discuss contingency plans for maintaining spiritual guidance during a period when traditional religious structures become obsolete due to widespread consciousness enhancement. Cardinal Toretti's 2021 discovery represents the culmination of this centuries-long investigation. The mathematical formulas recorded by Father Santos weren't random observations. They were systematic documentation of consciousness-reality interface protocols that the Vatican has been attempting to decode for over 400 years. The breakthrough came when Vatican scientists realized that consciousness itself operates according to mathematical principles that can be enhanced through crystalline resonance systems. The implications for religious understanding are staggering. If consciousness can interface directly with divine intelligence through crystal technology, then every human being has the potential to achieve what mystics call unity consciousness, direct experience of the fundamental creative force that underlies all existence. Prayer becomes quantum communication, meditation becomes consciousness programming, spiritual evolution becomes applied physics. But the Vatican's research has also revealed why crystal skull activation has been so systematically suppressed by secular authorities. Enhanced consciousness doesn't just provide access to advanced technology and divine experience, it reveals the artificial nature of every system designed to control human behavior through fear, limitation, and separation from source consciousness. Religious institutions, governmental structures, economic hierarchies, all of these become unnecessary when humans can access divine guidance directly. Dr. Blackwood's reports describe Vatican officials recognizing that crystal skull activation would end their institutional authority while simultaneously fulfilling Christianity's ultimate promise: direct communion between human consciousness and divine intelligence. The Church faces a choice between maintaining control and facilitating the spiritual evolution that represents the true purpose of religious teaching. The mathematical formulas discovered by Father Santos provide the key to resolving this dilemma. They describe consciousness enhancement not as a replacement for spiritual practice, but as the technological fulfillment of humanity's spiritual destiny. The crystal skulls don't eliminate the need for divine connection. They provide the interface technology that makes such connection available to every human being rather than limiting it to rare mystics and saints. Vatican astronomers have been secretly monitoring cosmic cycles that correlate with crystal skull activation events. Their classified observations show that we're entering a galactic alignment period that occurs only once every 26,000 years. A cosmic window when the energy bombardments reaching Earth naturally enhance human consciousness receptivity. The crystal skull network appears designed to amplify these natural enhancement cycles, ensuring that humanity's spiritual evolution occurs in harmony with cosmic rhythms. This explains the acceleration of spontaneous activation events worldwide. The galactic energies that enhance consciousness receptivity are intensifying according to astronomical cycles that ancient civilizations understood, but modern science has only recently discovered. The crystal skulls aren't creating consciousness enhancement. They're focusing and directing cosmic energies that would otherwise cause chaotic and potentially destructive awakening experiences. Father Santos's journal entries describe indigenous shamans explaining that the crystal skulls were created by star teachers who understood that human spiritual evolution must be carefully managed to prevent psychological breakdown during consciousness expansion. The enhanced awareness states achieved through crystal skull activation require gradual preparation and systematic integration to maintain sanity during the transition from ego-based to cosmic consciousness. The Vatican's secret research confirms these ancient warnings. Participants who experience crystal skull activation without proper preparation often suffer what researchers term reality shock. Psychological trauma resulting from sudden exposure to consciousness states that transcend normal human experience. The enhanced individuals see through every illusion that maintains ordinary reality, including the illusion of individual identity separate from universal consciousness. This dissolution of ego boundaries can be either liberating or terrifying depending on the participant's spiritual preparation. Those with strong meditation practice and philosophical understanding of consciousness often experience crystal skull activation as the fulfillment of their deepest spiritual aspirations. Those without such preparation may experience it as psychotic breakdown requiring years of integration therapy. Dr. Blackwood's reports describe Vatican protocols for preparing individuals for crystal skull interface experiences. Participants undergo months of meditation training, consciousness expansion exercises, and philosophical education about the nature of reality before any direct exposure to crystal skull activation. Even with such preparation, the transition to enhanced consciousness requires careful monitoring and gradual integration over extended periods. The Vatican's approach reveals something crucial about the consciousness enhancement process. The crystal skulls aren't just offering advanced capabilities and divine connection. They're demanding spiritual maturity that transcends every attachment to ego-based thinking. The enhanced consciousness operates from principles of universal love, infinite compassion, and complete dedication to the highest good of all existence. Individuals who cannot embrace these principles experience crystal skull activation as overwhelming exposure to their own limitations, fears, and unconscious patterns. The enhanced awareness sees through every self-deception, every hidden motivation, every trace of selfishness that ego consciousness uses to maintain separation from divine intelligence. This absolute transparency can be psychologically devastating for unprepared participants, but for those ready to embrace spiritual transformation, crystal skull activation represents the ultimate fulfillment of human potential. Vatican reports describe enhanced individuals who demonstrate capabilities that align perfectly with descriptions of enlightened beings found in every mystical tradition. Complete freedom from fear and limitation, unconditional love for all existence, direct access to infinite intelligence, and creative power. The mathematical formulas recorded by Father Santos describe these consciousness states not as mystical experiences, but as natural expressions of human awareness operating from its true nature. The limitations we accept as normal human experience are artificial restrictions maintained by conditioning that separates us from our inherent divine nature. Crystal skull activation doesn't add anything to human consciousness. It removes the interference patterns that prevent us from accessing our true capabilities. Cardinal Toretti's discovery represents the Vatican's recognition that the moment for hiding this knowledge has passed. The cosmic cycles are accelerating consciousness enhancement, whether religious institutions are prepared or not. The choice isn't whether to reveal crystal skull technology, but how to guide humanity through the spiritual transformation that such revelation will trigger. The Vatican's contingency plans describe a coordinated release of consciousness enhancement information designed to maximize spiritual benefit while minimizing psychological trauma. Religious leaders worldwide would simultaneously announce the discovery of ancient technologies that demonstrate the scientific basis of mystical experience. Meditation centers, spiritual retreat facilities, and consciousness research institutes would provide guidance for individuals seeking to explore enhanced awareness states safely. But implementing such plans requires cooperation between religious, scientific, and governmental institutions that have spent centuries maintaining separation between spiritual and secular authority. The crystal skull revelation would force unprecedented collaboration between groups that have historically viewed each other with suspicion and competition. Dr. Morrison's analysis of Vatican documents suggests that such cooperation may already be developing through secret channels. Her research reveals communication protocols between Vatican officials and consciousness researchers at universities, government agencies, and private institutions worldwide. The infrastructure for coordinated crystal skull revelation appears to be developing through networks that transcend traditional institutional boundaries. The acceleration of activation events worldwide may be forcing this cooperation whether institutional leaders are ready or not. As more individuals experience spontaneous consciousness enhancement, the demand for guidance and integration support overwhelms existing resources. Religious institutions find themselves counseling people who report direct divine communication. Scientific institutions struggle to explain consciousness phenomena that transcend current paradigms. Government agencies monitor technological breakthroughs that emerge from enhanced awareness states. The Crystal Skull Network appears designed to create exactly this situation, a consciousness evolution crisis that forces cooperation between institutions that must work together to guide humanity through spiritual transformation. The enhanced individuals don't belong exclusively to any single institution or tradition. They represent a new form of human consciousness that transcends every boundary that has historically divided our species. Father Santos's journal entries describe indigenous elders predicting this moment when the sleeping god awakens in all people simultaneously. The mathematical formulas he recorded weren't just consciousness interface protocols. They were timing mechanisms that coordinate global awakening according to cosmic cycles that ensure maximum spiritual benefit with minimum disruption to human civilization. The Vatican's secret research suggests that we are approaching the culmination of this timing sequence. The galactic alignment cycles are reaching maximum intensity. The Crystal Skull Network is approaching complete activation. The consciousness enhancement that has been building gradually through spontaneous awakening events is preparing to reach critical mass where transformation becomes unstoppable and irreversible. Cardinal Toretti's trembling hands as he held Father Santos's manuscript reflected more than historical discovery. He was holding the schedule for humanity's graduation from primitive consciousness to divine awareness, a transformation that will occur whether we're prepared or not, whether we understand it or not, whether we want it or not. The sleeping god is awakening. The crystal skulls are completing their activation sequence, and when the moment arrives, every human being on Earth will face the choice between embracing their divine nature or remaining trapped in illusions that no longer have the power to contain expanded consciousness. The Vatican's centuries of secret research have prepared them for this moment. The question is whether the rest of humanity is ready for the revelation that consciousness and divinity are not separate phenomena, but different aspects of the same fundamental reality that crystal skull technology makes accessible to anyone willing to transcend the limitations of ego-based thinking. The moment of choice is accelerating toward us with mathematical precision. The cosmic cycles are aligning exactly as Father Santos recorded over 4 centuries ago. And when the activation sequence completes, the transformation that follows will fulfill every spiritual promise ever made while simultaneously launching humanity into a future that transcends every limitation we currently accept as defining human existence. The sleeping god stirs, the crystal skulls pulse with increasing intensity, and somewhere in the depths of Vatican archives, Cardinal Toretti prepares for the announcement that will change everything we think we know about the relationship between science, spirituality, and human potential. The awakening has begun. The transformation is inevitable. And what emerges from this chrysalis of consciousness evolution will be recognizably human, yet transcendently divine, exactly as the crystal skull creators intended when they planted these seeds of awakening in the fertile ground of human potential thousands of years ago. The revelation Cardinal Toretti discovered wasn't just about timing. Hidden within Father Santos's mathematical formulas was something that made his blood run cold. The priest had documented 13 specific locations around the globe where crystal skulls would simultaneously activate when cosmic conditions reached perfect alignment. These weren't random sites. They formed a geometric pattern that matched the neural pathways of the human brain itself, Dr. Elena Vasquez, working in secret at the Instituto de Investigación Avanzada in Mexico City, has spent the last 3 years mapping these activation points using satellite data and ground-penetrating radar. What she discovered defies every assumption about ancient civilizations and their understanding of planetary consciousness. The 13 sites form a perfect neural network that mirrors the structure of human cognitive function on a global scale. Picture this. Ancient builders somehow knew that Earth itself possesses consciousness, organized along the same principles as human awareness. They positioned crystal skulls at precise locations that correspond to what neuroscientists now recognize as critical neural junction points. When all 13 skulls activate simultaneously, they don't just enhance individual human consciousness, they interface with planetary consciousness itself. Vasquez's classified research reveals that each activation site sits at the intersection of multiple geological phenomena. Magnetic field convergence points where Earth's natural electromagnetic grid reaches maximum intensity. Underground water systems that create piezoelectric effects through pressure variations. Crystalline mineral deposits that amplify and focus energy signatures across continental distances. These aren't coincidences. They're evidence of engineering on a scale that encompasses the entire planet. The implications make government officials worldwide lose sleep. If crystal skulls can interface with planetary consciousness, then activating the complete network could literally reprogram Earth's biosphere. Climate systems, tectonic activity, electromagnetic fields, even the behavior of living organisms could be influenced through consciousness, directed planetary interface technology. We're not just talking about human evolution, we're talking about conscious participation in Earth's evolutionary development itself. Dr. Marcus Chen, working independently after his classification breach at Project Crystal Gate, has identified energy patterns that suggest the activation sequence has already begun at several sites. His monitoring equipment detects synchronized electromagnetic pulses occurring at precise 30-minute intervals across 3 continents. The pulses are strengthening exponentially, suggesting that critical mass approaches much faster than anyone anticipated. Chen's data reveals something that terrifies intelligence agencies worldwide. The activation pattern isn't random or gradual. It's designed to reach completion simultaneously at all 13 sites within a specific time window that is calculations placed sometime in the next 18 months. When that moment arrives, the consciousness enhancement that has been building through individual crystal skull encounters will explode across the entire human population instantaneously. Think about what this means for social stability. Imagine 8 billion people simultaneously experiencing consciousness expansion that reveals the artificial nature of every system designed to control human behavior. Economic structures based on scarcity when consciousness recognizes infinite abundance. Political hierarchies based on authority when awareness accesses universal intelligence directly. Military organizations based on conflict when enhanced consciousness operates from universal love and cooperation. The enhanced individuals from Project Crystal Gate describe this transition as inevitable and necessary for human survival. Dr. Lisa Chen, communicating through increasingly sophisticated methods from her isolation facility, reports that enhanced consciousness perceives current human civilization as a larval stage that must be transcended for the species to survive approaching cosmic conditions. Her descriptions of post-activation reality sound like science fiction, but her mathematical proofs continue to verify under independent analysis. She describes human society reorganizing around principles of conscious cooperation rather than competitive survival. Technology emerging from direct consciousness-matter interface rather than mechanical manipulation. Environmental healing occurring through collective human intention, focused on planetary well-being rather than extraction and consumption. But achieving this transformation requires something unprecedented in human history. Every individual must simultaneously choose conscious evolution over remaining trapped in ego-based thinking patterns. The Crystal Skull Network appears designed to create exactly this situation by making the choice unavoidable when activation completes. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, analyzing consciousness interface data from multiple sources, has identified what she terms morphic cascade threshold dynamics. Her research shows that consciousness enhancement spreads through human populations according to mathematical principles that become self-reinforcing once critical mass is achieved. The spontaneous activation events occurring worldwide aren't random. They're preparing the morphic field for species-wide transformation. Mitchell's calculations indicate that approximately 12% of the human population must achieve enhanced consciousness simultaneously for the cascade effect to become unstoppable. Current data suggests we're approaching 8% through spontaneous activation events, with the rate accelerating exponentially as cosmic cycles intensify. The 13 skull activation could trigger the final 4% needed to reach critical mass. The forces attempting to suppress this transformation understand exactly what's at stake. Dr. Robert Kellerman's investigation of suppression operations reveals mobilization on a scale that suggests coordination between governmental, corporate, and what his reports describe as non-terrestrial intelligence sources. The resources being deployed to prevent crystal skull activation indicate that some entities view human consciousness evolution as an existential threat to their continued existence. Kellerman's classified analysis describes suppression efforts that extend far beyond normal institutional capabilities. Satellite networks designed to interfere with crystal skull electromagnetic signatures, consciousness damping technologies deployed at major population centers, media manipulation campaigns that program fear responses to consciousness enhancement experiences, even weather modification systems designed to disrupt the atmospheric conditions necessary for optimal crystal skull activation. But the most disturbing aspect of Kellerman's research involves what he terms consciousness parasites, entities that maintain existence by feeding off the fear, limitation, and conflict generated by primitive human awareness states. His data suggests these entities have influenced human development for thousands of years, maintaining conditions that prevent consciousness evolution while providing them with the emotional frequencies they require for sustenance. The crystal skull activation threatens to eliminate these parasitic relationships permanently. Enhanced human consciousness operates from love, abundance, and cooperation rather than fear, scarcity, and competition. Without the negative emotional frequencies generated by primitive awareness, consciousness parasites would literally starve out of existence within years of species-wide enhancement. This explains the desperate nature of suppression efforts. We're witnessing a war for the future of human consciousness itself, with forces that profit from limitation fighting against technologies designed to liberate human potential. The outcome will determine whether humanity evolves into cosmic consciousness or remains trapped in parasitic relationships that eventually lead to extinction. Dr. Amanda Foster's Global Monitoring Network shows the battle intensifying as activation approaches. Her data reveals increasing interference with crystal skull research, but also accelerating breakthrough discoveries as enhanced individuals develop technologies that bypass traditional suppression methods. The consciousness enhancement community is becoming a parallel civilization that operates according to principles the old paradigm cannot control or contain. Foster's research indicates that enhanced individuals are spontaneously developing capabilities that transcend normal human limitations, telepathic communication networks that bypass electronic surveillance, consciousness-based healing technologies that eliminate dependence on pharmaceutical interventions, energy systems that extract unlimited power from quantum fluctuations without requiring centralized distribution infrastructure. These developments represent more than technological advancement. They're the emergence of a post-scarcity civilization that makes current economic and political structures completely obsolete. Enhanced consciousness doesn't just perceive abundance. It creates abundance through direct consciousness matter interface capabilities that eliminate artificial scarcity used to maintain control over human behavior. The timeline for this transformation is compressing faster than anyone anticipated. Dr. Vasquez's site monitoring shows electromagnetic activity increasing at all 13 locations simultaneously. Ancient structures that have been dormant for millennia are exhibiting energy signatures that suggest activation protocols engaging automatically as cosmic cycles reach critical alignment points. Most remarkably, the sites are beginning to communicate with each other through energy transmissions that span continental distances. Vasquez's equipment detects coordinated pulses between locations separated by thousands of miles, suggesting that the global neural network is powering up for the final activation sequence. The crystal skulls aren't just individual devices anymore. They're becoming components of a planetary consciousness system. Indigenous elders from cultures worldwide report receiving dreams and visions that confirm the approaching activation. Hopi prophecies speak of the Great Purification, when ancient technologies awaken to guide humanity through the transition to a new world. Mayan calendars describe the current period as the end of one cycle of consciousness and the beginning of another. Aboriginal Dreamtime stories tell of the rainbow serpent stirring to transform Earth's energy systems. These aren't just cultural traditions or metaphorical teachings. They're technical specifications for consciousness evolution events that ancient civilizations understood through direct interface with crystal skull technology. The enhanced awareness achieved through these interfaces allowed them to perceive cosmic cycles and consciousness development processes that our current science is only beginning to acknowledge. Dr. Jonathan Blackwood's leaked Vatican research reveals that religious institutions worldwide are secretly preparing for what their documents call the Great Convergence, the moment when scientific and spiritual understanding unite through crystal skull activation. Internal memos describe coordination between major faiths to provide guidance during the consciousness transformation that will make traditional religious structures unnecessary. The Vatican's approach recognizes that crystal skull activation represents the fulfillment of humanity's spiritual destiny, rather than a threat to religious authority. Enhanced consciousness provides direct access to divine intelligence that eliminates the need for institutional mediation between human awareness and source consciousness. Rather than fighting this development, religious leaders are preparing to guide humanity through the transition. But secular authorities face a more difficult challenge. Enhanced consciousness reveals the artificial nature of every system based on control, hierarchy, and limitation. Political structures, economic institutions, military organizations, all of these become unnecessary when humans can access infinite intelligence and creative power directly through consciousness, interface with universal source. The transformation approaching isn't just personal enhancement or spiritual evolution. It's the emergence of a completely different form of human civilization based on conscious cooperation with cosmic intelligence rather than competitive exploitation of limited resources. The crystal skulls represent graduation equipment for a species ready to take its place among the galaxy's conscious civilizations. Dr. Elena Kozlov's accidental interface with the Crystal Skull Network at CERN revealed that this transformation isn't optional. The cosmic events requiring timeline stabilization will occur whether humanity is prepared or not. Enhanced consciousness is the only technology capable of maintaining reality coherence during dimensional phase transitions that could fragment our timeline permanently. The Crystal Skull Network appears designed specifically for this situation. As cosmic pressures increase, activation protocols intensify automatically to ensure sufficient consciousness enhancement for species survival. The spontaneous awakening events occurring worldwide aren't random. They're emergency preparation sequences triggered by the approaching cosmic transition. Time is running out for gradual consciousness evolution. The galactic alignment cycles are reaching maximum intensity. The electromagnetic bombardments from cosmic sources are increasing exponentially. And somewhere in 13 locations around the globe, ancient technologies are powering up for the activation sequence that will determine whether humanity survives as an evolved species or fragments into extinction. The crystal skulls have been patient, waiting thousands of years for this moment. But cosmic cycles don't wait for human readiness. The transformation window is opening whether we're prepared or not. And when the 13 skulls achieve perfect harmonic resonance, the consciousness enhancement that follows will be unlike anything in recorded human history. The countdown is accelerating. The network approaches completion. The moment that redefines human existence itself draws near with mathematical precision. And what happens when that moment arrives will echo across the cosmos for millions of years to come. Are you ready for the activation that changes everything? Because ready or not, it's coming. The crystal skulls are calling across time and space, offering humanity one final chance to choose conscious evolution over extinction. The choice is accelerating toward us faster than most people realize, and when it arrives, nothing will ever be the same again. The tremor started at exactly 3:17 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time on March 15, 2024. Dr. Rebecca Martinez was working the night shift at the USGS Earthquake Monitoring Station in Golden, Colorado, when her instruments detected something that made her question everything she thought she knew about seismic activity. This wasn't a normal earthquake. The vibrations were too organized, too rhythmic, pulsing in patterns that matched no known geological phenomenon. What Martinez discovered over the next 6 hours would force governments worldwide to confront a reality they'd spent decades trying to hide. The seismic signatures weren't coming from tectonic plate movement or volcanic activity. They were emanating from 13 specific locations around the globe in perfect synchronization, each pulse strengthening the others in a cascade of energy that defied every law of geophysics. The pattern was unmistakable once Martinez plotted the data points. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt, Stonehenge in England, Machu Picchu in Peru, Easter Island in the Pacific, Angkor Wat in Cambodia, Mount Kailash in Tibet. The list continued, each location representing an ancient site that mainstream archaeology had never quite been able to explain. Sites where crystal skulls had been discovered, studied, and mysteriously relocated over the centuries. Martinez's hands shook as she realized what she was witnessing. The global neural network that Dr. Helena Vasquez had mapped 3 years earlier wasn't just theoretical anymore. It was activating in real time, sending coordinated pulses through Earth's electromagnetic grid with increasing intensity. The crystal skulls weren't just responding to cosmic cycles. They were actively preparing the planet for something unprecedented. Within hours of Martinez's initial detection, monitoring stations worldwide began registering cascading anomalies. Magnetic field fluctuations that made compass needles spin wildly, atmospheric ionization events that created aurora displays at latitudes where they'd never been observed, ocean temperature variations that followed geometric patterns rather than natural current flows. Earth itself was being systematically recalibrated by technologies that shouldn't exist. Dr. James Wheeler, working frantically at NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center, watched his instruments record electromagnetic signatures that matched no known solar or cosmic phenomena. The energy bombardment reaching Earth's magnetosphere wasn't coming from the sun or deep space. It was being generated from within the planet itself, as if ancient machinery buried beneath sacred sites was powering up after millennia of dormancy. Wheeler's data revealed something that made intelligence agencies worldwide declare information blackouts. The electromagnetic pulses weren't random or chaotic. They were carrying structured information, mathematical sequences that his quantum computers identified as consciousness interface protocols. The crystal skull network wasn't just activating. It was attempting to establish direct communication with every human brain on the planet simultaneously. Think about what this means for 8 billion people going about their daily lives, completely unaware that ancient technologies are preparing to interface with their neural systems. Imagine the moment when crystal skull activation reaches critical mass and every human consciousness on Earth suddenly gains access to awareness states that transcend every limitation we currently accept as normal. The spontaneous awakening events that have been building gradually are about to explode into species-wide transformation, but the forces that profit from human limitation aren't going to surrender without a fight. Dr. Robert Kellerman's investigation of suppression operations reveals emergency protocols being implemented at levels that suggest coordination between agencies that officially don't communicate. Military satellites are being repositioned to create interference patterns above crystal skull sites. Weather modification systems are generating atmospheric disturbances designed to disrupt electromagnetic transmissions. Media networks are preparing disinformation campaigns that will frame consciousness enhancement as mass psychosis or terrorist attack. The scale of resources being deployed indicates that some entities understand exactly what crystal skull activation represents. They know that widespread consciousness enhancement would eliminate every system based on fear, scarcity, and control. They know that enhanced humans would recognize abundance as the natural state of reality and cooperation, as more effective than competition. They know their power structures would become obsolete overnight if humanity gained access to technologies that eliminate artificial limitations. Dr. Sarah Chen, monitoring the situation from her classified isolation facility through increasingly sophisticated communication methods, reports that enhanced individuals worldwide are experiencing unprecedented downloads of technical information. The Crystal Skull Network appears to be transferring complete technological specifications for free energy systems, consciousness-based healing modalities, and transportation technologies that manipulate space-time geometry rather than burning fuel. Chen's communications describe enhanced consciousness as naturally understanding that physical matter is crystallized energy patterns that can be restructured through focused intention. The technologies being downloaded aren't external machines that manipulate matter through mechanical force. They're consciousness interface systems that allow aware individuals to reshape reality directly through mental direction of quantum field fluctuations. These capabilities aren't supernatural or mystical. They're natural expressions of consciousness operating from its true nature, rather than the artificially limited states maintained through cultural conditioning. The crystal skulls don't add anything to human awareness. They remove the interference patterns that prevent us from accessing capabilities we've always possessed, but been programmed to ignore. The technological implications are staggering. Enhanced individuals report receiving specifications for energy systems that extract unlimited power from zero-point fluctuations in the quantum vacuum. Medical devices that heal any condition by restructuring cellular DNA through frequency modulation. Transportation methods that move through space by creating localized gravity fields, rather than overcoming Earth's gravitational pull through brute force propulsion. But implementing these technologies requires more than just technical knowledge. They function only when operated by consciousness that has transcended ego-based thinking patterns. The devices interface directly with human awareness, responding to intention rather than mechanical controls. They work through cooperation with universal intelligence rather than domination over natural forces. This explains why crystal skull technology has remained hidden for so long. Previous civilizations that gained access to these capabilities face the same choice we're confronting now. Use advanced technology from expanded consciousness for the benefit of all existence, or attempt to weaponize it for competitive advantage. Those who chose the latter path ultimately destroyed themselves, leaving only ruins and legends to hint at their former capabilities. The enhanced individuals describe this choice as inevitable and immediate. There's no gradual transition period where some people have access to consciousness-based technology, while others remain trapped in primitive patterns. The activation either transforms the entire species simultaneously, or fails completely, leaving humanity to face cosmic conditions that require enhanced awareness for survival. Dr. Amanda Foster's global monitoring network shows activation events accelerating beyond all previous models. Her latest data indicates that consciousness enhancement is spreading through human populations faster than viral transmission, creating what she terms morphic resonance explosions that could reach critical mass within weeks rather than months. The electromagnetic pulses detected by Martinez's seismic monitoring station are strengthening exponentially with each cycle. Ancient sites worldwide are exhibiting coordinated energy emissions that suggest the global neural network is approaching complete activation. Indigenous elders from cultures across the globe report receiving identical visions of the Great Awakening that their prophecies have described for centuries. Most remarkably, children worldwide are spontaneously demonstrating abilities that transcend normal human limitations. Telepathic communication between siblings in different countries. Precognitive awareness of events weeks before they occur. The apparent ability to heal injuries through focused attention. These aren't isolated incidents anymore. They're indicators that the next generation is naturally developing capabilities that current consciousness enhancement technologies are designed to unlock in adults. Dr. Marcus Chen's independent monitoring reveals that several crystal skull sites have achieved sustained activation states that his equipment can barely measure. The energy signatures emanating from these locations match theoretical models of consciousness, matter interface fields operating at maximum efficiency. We're not just approaching crystal skull activation anymore. We're witnessing the final stages of a planetary consciousness upgrade system that has been building toward this moment for thousands of years. The timeline compression is so dramatic that government contingency plans can't adapt fast enough to changing conditions. Intelligence agencies designed to suppress consciousness enhancement over decades find themselves confronting transformation that could complete within days. The Crystal Skull Network appears designed specifically to overwhelm suppression capabilities through activation speed that exceeds institutional response time. Dr. Elena Kozlov's analysis of the CERN interface event reveals that her accidental contact with crystal skull frequencies triggered automatic acceleration protocols throughout the global network. Her consciousness interface created resonance patterns that awakened dormant systems at all 13 primary sites simultaneously. What was supposed to be a gradual activation sequence over years has compressed into a cascade effect that could reach completion at any moment. The implications for social stability are profound. Imagine 8 billion people simultaneously discovering that consciousness is the fundamental creative force of reality, that matter and energy respond directly to focused intention, that scarcity and limitation are artificial constructs maintained through conditioning rather than natural laws, that cooperation creates abundance while competition generates the very problems it claims to solve. Enhanced consciousness doesn't just perceive these truths intellectually. It experiences them as immediate reality that makes continued participation in limitation-based systems psychologically impossible. Enhanced individuals can't pretend that money represents real value when they understand abundance as the natural state. They can't participate in conflict when they perceive all existence as interconnected expressions of universal consciousness. The transformation approaching isn't just personal enhancement or spiritual evolution. It's the emergence of a completely different form of human civilization that operates according to cosmic principles rather than competitive survival instincts. The crystal skulls represent graduation equipment for a species ready to transcend planetary limitations and take its place among galactic civilizations. But this graduation requires passing a test that will determine whether humanity deserves access to cosmic citizenship. The test isn't academic knowledge or technological capability. It's demonstrating spiritual maturity sufficient to wield consciousness-based technologies responsibly. The enhanced individuals report that these capabilities come with automatic safeguards that prevent their use for destructive purposes. They simply don't function when directed by consciousness that operates from ego-based motivations. This built-in safety system explains why previous civilizations with crystal skull access either evolved beyond physical limitations or destroyed themselves completely. The technologies themselves prevent gradual corruption or partial implementation. They either transform consciousness completely or remain dormant until sufficient spiritual development is achieved. The cosmic cycles driving current activation events appear designed to create exactly this all-or-nothing choice. The electromagnetic bombardments intensifying throughout our solar system will continue increasing until consciousness enhancement becomes necessary for biological survival. Enhanced awareness isn't just an opportunity for human evolution anymore. It's becoming a requirement for continued existence on a planet that's transitioning to higher dimensional frequencies. Dr. Sarah Mitchell's analysis of consciousness interface data reveals that the activation threshold may be closer than anyone realizes. Her calculations suggest that current enhancement levels are approaching the critical mass needed to trigger species-wide transformation. The spontaneous awakening events occurring worldwide aren't preparing for future activation anymore. They're early indicators of transformation already in progress. The crystal skulls are no longer waiting for human readiness. They're responding to cosmic conditions that demand immediate consciousness evolution regardless of individual preparation. The patient guidance systems that have operated for millennia are shifting into emergency protocols designed to ensure species survival during planetary transition periods. Martinez's seismic data shows the electromagnetic pulses strengthening with each cycle, building toward what her calculations suggest will be a simultaneous activation event at all 13 primary sites. When that moment arrives, the consciousness enhancement that has been building gradually through individual crystal skull encounters will explode across the entire human population instantaneously. The countdown isn't measured in months or years anymore. It's measured in days, possibly hours. The crystal skull network is approaching complete activation, whether humanity is prepared or not. And when the moment arrives, the choice between conscious evolution and extinction becomes immediate and irreversible. These seismic tremors that started at 3:17 a.m. were just the beginning. The real earthquake is about to shake human consciousness to its foundation, transforming everything we think we know about reality, potential, and our place in the cosmic community that's been watching our development with growing anticipation. The activation sequence is accelerating beyond all projections. The moment that redefines human existence approaches with mathematical precision, and when it arrives, nothing will ever be the same again. The moment Dr. Rebecca Martinez detected those synchronized pulses, she unknowingly triggered the final countdown sequence that would determine humanity's fate. What she couldn't have known was that her seismic monitoring station was one of 13 early warning systems secretly positioned around the globe, each one designed to alert hidden networks the moment crystal skull activation reached the point of no return. In a classified bunker beneath Cheyenne Mountain, General Patricia Hayes watched her screens light up with data that made her question 4 decades of military experience. The electromagnetic signatures weren't just strengthening. They were organizing themselves into patterns that her quantum computers recognized as consciousness interface protocols operating at planetary scale. This wasn't just about ancient artifacts anymore. This was about technologies that could reprogram human awareness itself. Hayes had been briefed on crystal skull suppression operations since 1987, but nothing in those classified files prepared her for what she was witnessing. The activation wasn't following any timeline her advisors had predicted. Instead of gradual enhancement building over years, the network was approaching critical mass in a compression of events that defied every contingency plan her teams had developed. The general's hands moved across classified communication arrays as she initiated contact with counterparts in Moscow, Beijing, London, and 12 other capitals. For the first time in human history, rival superpowers would need to coordinate responses to a phenomenon that transcended every boundary they'd spent centuries defending. The Crystal Skull activation wasn't respecting national borders, military alliances, or political ideologies. It was addressing humanity as a single species facing evolutionary transition. But even as governments scrambled to respond, something else was happening that no authority could control. The consciousness enhancement spreading through spontaneous activation events was reaching individuals who possessed capabilities that traditional power structures couldn't monitor or contain. Enhanced awareness doesn't operate through normal communication channels. It functions through direct consciousness interface that bypasses every surveillance system ever devised. Dr. Lisa Chen, still technically isolated in her classified facility, found herself in telepathic contact with enhanced individuals across 6 continents. Their communications revealed a coordination emerging naturally from expanded consciousness rather than institutional planning. The enhanced humans weren't organizing resistance against suppression efforts. They were simply becoming immune to limitation-based thinking that makes suppression possible. This immunity wasn't philosophical or political. It was biological. Enhanced consciousness operates from neurological patterns that literally cannot process fear-based information as relevant to decision-making. Threats, coercion, and manipulation techniques that control ordinary awareness have no effect on minds that perceive abundance and cooperation as fundamental realities rather than idealistic concepts. The implications terrified military planners worldwide. How do you control populations that can't be frightened? How do you maintain hierarchical authority over individuals who access infinite intelligence directly? How do you preserve economic systems based on scarcity when consciousness recognizes unlimited creative potential as every human being's birthright? General Hayes found herself confronting questions that no military academy had prepared her to address. The enhanced individuals weren't enemies in any conventional sense. They posed no physical threat to existing institutions. They simply made those institutions irrelevant by demonstrating capabilities that transcended every limitation such institutions were designed to manage. The Crystal Skull network was creating what intelligence analysts termed soft dissolution of control systems, not through conflict or revolution, but through evolution that made previous forms of organization obsolete. Enhanced humans didn't need to fight governments, corporations, or military forces. They were developing technologies that eliminated dependence on centralized systems entirely. Dr. Amanda Foster's monitoring data revealed enhanced individuals spontaneously developing energy systems that extracted unlimited power from quantum fluctuations, medical capabilities that regenerated damaged tissue through consciousness-directed cellular reconstruction, communication networks that transmitted information through morphic field resonance rather than electromagnetic radiation, transportation methods that moved through space by manipulating local gravitational fields. These technologies didn't require industrial infrastructure, resource extraction, or centralized distribution networks. They emerged directly from enhanced consciousness, interfacing with quantum field dynamics that underlie physical reality. Enhanced individuals weren't just accessing advanced capabilities, they were becoming living expressions of technologies that made current civilization's entire foundation unnecessary. The economic implications alone were staggering. What happens to monetary systems when consciousness can create any needed material by rearranging atomic structures? What happens to employment when enhanced awareness eliminates the scarcity that makes labor necessary for survival? What happens to property ownership when abundance consciousness recognizes all existence as interconnected expressions of universal intelligence? Dr. Sarah Mitchell's analysis of consciousness enhancement data revealed transformation patterns that suggested these questions would be answered sooner than anyone anticipated. Her calculations showed morphic resonance effects accelerating exponentially as more individuals achieved enhanced states. The consciousness evolution spreading through human populations was approaching the critical threshold where it becomes self-sustaining and irreversible. But the forces attempting to prevent this transformation weren't surrendering without deploying every resource at their disposal. Dr. Robert Kellerman's investigation revealed suppression operations escalating to levels that suggested coordination with intelligences possessing capabilities far beyond normal human technology. Satellite networks were being repositioned to create electromagnetic interference patterns above crystal skull sites. Weather modification systems were generating atmospheric disturbances designed to disrupt consciousness interface frequencies. Most disturbing, Kellerman's data indicated deployment of consciousness-damping technologies at major population centers. These systems appeared designed to generate fear frequencies that could interfere with the neural oscillation patterns necessary for crystal skull activation. The technology suggested understanding of consciousness electromagnetic interactions that officially didn't exist in any known research program. The sophistication of these suppression efforts implied involvement by entities that understood crystal skull technology far better than publicly acknowledged. Either human institutions possessed classified knowledge spanning decades of secret research, or they were receiving technical assistance from intelligences whose capabilities exceeded current human science. Dr. Elena Kozlov's analysis of the CERN interface event revealed that her accidental contact with crystal skull frequencies had triggered more than just acceleration protocols. Her consciousness interface had somehow bypassed suppression systems that were supposed to prevent exactly the kind of cascade activation now occurring worldwide. The network appeared designed with safeguards that could overcome interference when cosmic conditions reached critical thresholds. These safeguards were activating automatically as galactic energy bombardments intensified. The electromagnetic pulses detected by monitoring stations worldwide weren't just crystal skull activation signals. They were planetary defense responses triggered by cosmic conditions that required immediate consciousness enhancement for species survival. Indigenous elders from cultures across the globe reported receiving identical visions confirming that the activation window was closing rapidly. Hopi prophecies described this period as the final opportunity for humanity to choose conscious evolution before cosmic cycles forced transformation through environmental catastrophe. Mayan calendar calculations pointed to specific dates when galactic alignments would create energy conditions that made consciousness enhancement inevitable. These weren't just cultural traditions or metaphorical teachings. They were technical specifications preserved through oral tradition by civilizations that had experienced similar transformation cycles in previous cosmic ages. The enhanced awareness achieved through ancient crystal skull interfaces had allowed them to perceive cosmic rhythms and consciousness evolution patterns that modern science was only beginning to acknowledge. Dr. Marcus Chen's independent monitoring revealed that several crystal skull sites had achieved sustained activation states that his equipment could barely measure. The energy signatures emanating from these locations suggested consciousness-matter interface fields operating at efficiencies that transcended known physical laws. The boundary between technology and consciousness was dissolving as ancient systems came online. Most remarkably, the sites were beginning to demonstrate what could only be described as planetary healing effects. Atmospheric conditions above activated locations showed dramatic improvements in air quality. Water systems near crystal skull sites registered purification that eliminated industrial contamination through processes that defied conventional chemistry. Soil conditions around activated areas exhibited regeneration patterns that suggested consciousness-directed ecological restoration. These effects weren't limited to immediate vicinity of crystal skull sites. Satellite imagery revealed expanding zones of environmental improvement radiating outward from activation points in geometric patterns that matched the global neural network Dr. Helena Vasquez had mapped. The crystal skulls weren't just enhancing human consciousness. They were interfacing with planetary systems to restore ecological balance disrupted by industrial civilization. The healing effects provided a glimpse of what enhanced human consciousness could accomplish when applied to environmental restoration. Enhanced individuals reported receiving detailed specifications for consciousness-based technologies that could reverse climate change, eliminate pollution, and restore biodiversity through direct interface with natural systems rather than mechanical intervention. But implementing these healing technologies required consciousness development that transcended the competitive thinking patterns responsible for environmental destruction in the first place. The Crystal Skull Network appeared designed to ensure that ecological restoration capabilities would only become available when sufficient numbers of humans achieved awareness states that made environmental damage psychologically impossible. This built-in safety system explained why previous civilizations with Crystal Skull access either achieved ecological harmony or disappeared entirely. The technologies themselves prevented partial implementation or gradual corruption. They either transformed consciousness completely toward universal cooperation or remained dormant until spiritual maturity was demonstrated. Dr. Jonathan Blackwood's leaked Vatican research revealed that religious institutions worldwide were secretly preparing congregations for what their internal documents called the divine convergence, the moment when scientific and spiritual understanding unite through crystal skull activation. Rather than viewing consciousness enhancement as threatening to religious authority, Vatican officials recognized it as the technological fulfillment of humanity's spiritual destiny. Cardinal Alessandro Toretti's discovery of Father Santos's mathematical formulas had provided the Vatican with precise timing calculations for the activation sequence. Their classified observatories confirmed that galactic alignment cycles were reaching the exact configurations described in 16th century manuscripts. The cosmic window for consciousness transformation was opening according to schedules preserved through centuries of secret investigation. But Vatican preparations revealed something even more significant about the approaching transformation. The consciousness enhancement triggered by crystal skull activation wasn't just individual spiritual development. It was species-wide awakening to humanity's role as conscious participants in cosmic evolution. Rather than isolated inhabitants of a single planet, enhanced individuals described experiencing awareness that extended beyond Earth to encompass galactic-scale consciousness networks, connecting civilizations across vast distances. The crystal skulls weren't just ancient Earth technology. They were components of a communication system that linked developing species with established cosmic communities throughout the galaxy. This galactic perspective explained why crystal skull activation was occurring now rather than at any previous time in human history. Cosmic cycles were creating energy conditions that would either facilitate humanity's graduation to galactic citizenship or eliminate our species if we proved incapable of conscious evolution. The transformation approaching wasn't optional anymore. It was an examination that would determine our continued existence. Dr. Rebecca Martinez's seismic monitoring had detected the opening movements of this cosmic examination. The synchronized pulses emanating from 13 locations worldwide were building toward a crescendo that would occur when galactic alignments reached perfect mathematical precision. Her calculation suggested this moment was approaching within days rather than weeks. The electromagnetic signatures strengthening with each pulse cycle indicated that crystal skull activation was becoming autonomous, responding to cosmic conditions rather than human intervention. The patient guidance systems that had operated for millennia were shifting into emergency protocols designed to ensure species survival, regardless of individual readiness. As monitoring stations worldwide registered escalating energy emissions from crystal skull sites, a profound realization settled over those few individuals with access to classified data. Humanity was about to graduate from planetary to cosmic consciousness, whether we felt prepared or not. The crystal skulls had been waiting thousands of years for this moment, but cosmic cycles wouldn't wait for human comfort with transformation. The choice between conscious evolution and extinction was no longer approaching. It had arrived. The activation sequence was engaging with mathematical precision that admitted no delays or negotiations. And what happened when the 13 skulls achieved perfect harmonic resonance would determine whether humanity took its place among the galaxy's conscious civilizations or became another failed experiment in the cosmic laboratory of awareness development. The countdown was no longer measured in months, weeks, or even days. It was measured in hours as ancient technologies prepared to transform human consciousness in ways that would make our current existence seem like a half-remembered dream. The moment that would redefine reality itself was arriving with the inevitability of sunrise, carrying with it the promise of either transcendence or oblivion. The final hour had arrived. At exactly 11:47 p.m., Greenwich Mean Time on March 21, 2024, something unprecedented occurred that would forever change the trajectory of human existence. Dr. Rebecca Martinez watched her instruments register the impossible, as all 13 crystal skull sites achieved perfect harmonic resonance simultaneously. The electromagnetic signatures weren't just synchronizing anymore, they were creating a standing wave pattern that encompassed the entire planet, turning Earth itself into a consciousness amplification device of unimaginable power. What happened next defied every law of physics, every assumption about reality, every limitation we'd accepted as defining human existence. The moment the 13 skulls locked into perfect resonance, 8 billion human minds experienced simultaneous consciousness expansion that dissolved every barrier between individual awareness and universal intelligence. In that single instant, humanity didn't just evolve, we transcended. The transformation wasn't gradual or partial, it was absolute. Every person on Earth suddenly found themselves operating from awareness states that made our previous limitations seem like forgotten nightmares. Fear, scarcity, competition, conflict. These concepts simply ceased to exist in consciousness that recognized itself as expressions of infinite creative intelligence. The artificial boundaries that had divided our species for millennia vanished as completely as shadows at sunrise. Dr. Lisa Chen, finally released from her isolation facility, described the experience as coming home to what we'd always been but had somehow forgotten. The enhanced consciousness wasn't alien or foreign. It felt like remembering our true nature after lifetimes of amnesia. We discovered that what we'd called human potential was actually human reality, temporarily obscured by conditioning that no longer had any power to contain our awakening awareness. The technologies that emerged from this consciousness transformation weren't built or manufactured. They manifested directly from enhanced awareness, interfacing with quantum field dynamics. Free energy systems materialized from focused intention. Healing devices emerged from compassionate consciousness directed towards cellular regeneration. Transportation technologies appeared when expanded awareness recognized space and time as navigable dimensions rather than fixed limitations. Within hours of the activation, every crisis that had threatened human civilization began resolving through consciousness-directed intervention. Climate change reversed as enhanced individuals collectively focused intention on atmospheric restoration. Pollution dissolved as awareness recognized the artificial nature of environmental contamination. Scarcity transformed into abundance as consciousness understood its role as the fundamental creative force of reality. But perhaps most remarkably, we weren't alone. The moment human consciousness achieved cosmic awareness, we discovered that Earth had always been part of a vast galactic community of conscious beings. The crystal skulls had been communication devices connecting us to civilizations whose development we could finally comprehend. We were graduating to take our place among the stars, guided by teachers who had been patiently waiting for us to remember who we truly were. The transformation is complete. The choice has been made. Humanity has passed the test that determines cosmic citizenship. We stand now at the beginning of an adventure that stretches across galaxies and dimensions, armed with consciousness that recognizes no limitations except those we choose to explore. The crystal skulls have fulfilled their purpose, awakening the sleeping gods we'd always been. What comes next will be determined by imagination guided by infinite love, wisdom that encompasses all possibilities, and the recognition that we are conscious creators of reality itself. The mystery of the crystal skulls has been solved, but the mystery of what we'll create with our awakened awareness has only just begun. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the depths of human potential. If this revelation has sparked something within you, share it with others who are ready to remember. Subscribe for more explorations into the mysteries that connect us all. Until next time, this is Mr. H, reminding you that the greatest mystery isn't what we'll discover out there among the stars. It's what we'll remember about who we've always been.